Then, you guys, J.B. Pritzker is our new governor. You see, we don't play in Illinois. Let's see what everybody else is doing. Hey, Democrats getting their seats. Of course, Republicans getting theirs. But guess what? Illinois don't play with politics. And guess what? Let's see with Georgia. We pray for that to be a centerpiece. But we don't play in Illinois when it comes to politics. We know what we want. We know what we're looking for. You either in or you out. So let's continue on. Ron is on speaking. He's conceding 25 to I think 60, almost 60%. J.D. Pritzker. Significant progress. Let's continue on.
We brought Illinois government into the 21st century and dismantled some of the many regulations that hold our jobs.
So Trump, I would be very nervous.
We laid the foundation to make Illinois the Silicon Valley of the Midwest.
I'm going to take a back seat back here.
We delivered education funding reform and criminal justice reform and made Illinois a leader in mental health services, clean energy jobs, and digitizing government. I want to thank the many dedicated, talented people who have worked with me over the past 4 years to accomplish so much. Let's hear it for these great public servants. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Together, we restored responsibility and accountability in state government, driven by our love of our state and a desire to do what is right. The change we sought for Illinois is still the change we need. There is no going back to a time of insider deals and corruption. The people of Illinois deserve and will demand a government that helps them realize their potential and supports their prosperity. We are living through troubling times in our country. Good government, common sense, and decency often feel at risk. Division and discord dominate our news. Decades of corruption in Illinois have left us cynical and sent many to move to other states. But things are changing. We saw that in our 4 years of principled fighting to bring sanity to our fiscal affairs and balance to our politics. The people of Illinois will not settle for the status quo. The people of Illinois are so much better than the political machine that constantly has let us down. I spoke to Mr. Pritzker moments ago. To Mr. Pritzker, I said, Godspeed. I hope and pray you serve Illinois well. And I look forward to assisting with full effort for a smooth transition so that the people of Illinois' best interest is served at all times. And to each and every one of you who have worked with us and strived with us, please don't give up. Fight for the change that the people of Illinois need. To the members of our administration, some of whom are here tonight, but they are throughout the state of Illinois, thank you for your hard work, for good government, and service to the people of Illinois. God bless you. Thank you for your service. And to the thousands and thousands of volunteers and activists and supporters across the state of Illinois who've helped Evelyn and I over our last 6 years of journey through hard work, ups and downs, Democrats and Republicans supporting us, not based on partisanship, but the desire for a better future for our children and our grandchildren with the change that our state needs. Thank you for your support. Thank you all for the opportunity to serve you. I remain and will always be a proud son of Illinois and a believer in our future. God bless the great state of Illinois, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you so very much. On to a better future.
And with that, Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner ending his campaign for re-election, conceding this race to Democrat J.B. Pritzker. I want to mention to you that Mr. Pritzker, his campaign has notified us he's expected to be speaking publicly within the hour. Governor Rauner there kissing his wife Diana, and also some of the other family members who joined him on the stage this evening. Take a quick note to mention just this race and where the vote total stands at this moment, and it is closing quickly. That is certainly true tonight. Here we are, just after 8 o'clock in the evening here, a little more than an hour after the polls have closed. But you can see why the governor took this stand so early on in the night, because those vote totals are certainly unsurmountable. About a greater than 2-to-1 vote margin. J.B. Pritzker winning over Governor Bruce Rauner. The governor in his speech asking for unity across Illinois. He called on Democrats to find some common ground in solving Illinois' financial challenges. And of course, they're urging everyone to come together and work for Illinois' better future. I invite you to stay with us for more updates throughout this evening. Our special coming up at 10 o'clock tonight. Updates on our website and our news app as well. I'm Alan Krzyzewski. We'll see you back here in just a little bit.
Oh, they're going to start questioning Chuck Schumer's decision making. He spent $8.5 million in the last 3 weeks in New Jersey. But Joe Donnelly and Senator Nelson and whether it's Claire McCaskill, if she has problems later tonight, are going to be wondering. And they're probably going to be sending not thank you notes to Bob Menendez.
We have another result coming in. It's from the state of West Virginia right now. And we are seeing that Joe Manchin, there it is right there, Joe Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia, will hold on to that seat. It looked dicey there for a while, but Joe Manchin, former governor, incumbent senator, will hold on to that seat. No pickup for the Republicans there. But John called out a seat Democrats had to hold.
Absolutely had to hold. Also, by the way, that is definitely Donald Trump's best Democratic friend in the United States Senate. Both a good personal relationship and supported him, and also the one and only Democrat who voted for Kavanaugh to confirm Kavanaugh.
Yeah, take a look at what we're seeing from the exit polls on Joe Manchin. People still like him in West Virginia. That's the thing. He's been around for a long time. 51% of the voters who turned out today say they have a favorable opinion of Joe Manchin. In his final days, he was on his motorcycle crisscrossing the state. He actually said that he regretted supporting Hillary Clinton, said he might be open to supporting Donald Trump in 2020 if he agrees with him on a number of issues. And as we know, he famously went against Brett Kavanaugh at the last minute after that Susan Collins speech. He didn't want to be the tipping point on Brett Kavanaugh, but he did come out against Kavanaugh, and it likely helped him in the end.
Donna Brazil, amazing that Joe Manchin could actually survive West Virginia, the reddest of red states.
You don't know Joe. Joe is a fighter. Joe understands the people of West Virginia. He knows that they want somebody who will stand up for them and fight for them. And he ran a kind of campaign right down the middle where he could still appeal to Democrats, but reach out to independents and be able to eke out a victory.
Sure. As a Republican, I can tell you, Joe Manchin was my mentor when I became governor in 2010. He can work with everybody, and they know their governor. It's different. When a governor runs for the United States Senate, they know their governor. They feel like they know him, and the negative ads don't work as well.
Especially in a state like West Virginia. Tom, go back up to the board now, but let's pull up the state of Florida, because we are going to be, let's pull up the Florida Senate right now. Let's get a sense of where this vote is coming in, because it's so important.
So, earlier in the night, we were talking about how we split up Florida into 3 different parts, and John Carl made the astute point about the vote being out in Broward County so far. Right now, we're talking about maybe a 60,000 vote gap here. And if you look over at Broward County right now, they have 70% reporting. In Miami-Dade, They're at 87%. I think, just from looking at this race, and even though I know Governor Scott spoke with Governor Christie, a lot of the vote is in the Panhandle. All the vote in South Florida is not in yet. So when you look at Nelson is overperforming in Broward compared to Hillary Clinton. He's underperforming in Miami-Dade, but he's doing well in Orange County, Orlando, in Jacksonville. He's doing well right there. If I'm Bill Nelson right now, I'm watching that vote very closely in Broward and Miami-Dade. If the numbers change, he could stay with his seat.
So what we just, for comparison's sake, how much of the vote is in up there in the Panhandle?
So look, when we go to these Panhandle votes, I mean, these are very tiny counties. These are some of the most Republican counties. Santa Rosa, they only account for less than 1%, but 100% reporting in here, 81% reporting in here, 100% here. A lot of the Panhandle is in from what we're looking at. South Florida, Broward, Miami-Dade, we need to look at those two counties all night.
Matthew?
And to a very close Florida race in 2000 that went on for 31 days. On election night, I'm just going to keep in mind, on election night, with 98% of the vote in, we had a 50,000 vote lead. George W. Bush in that campaign had a 50,000 vote with 98% of the vote in. And I looked at what was out, which was primarily Broward and Palm Beach and Miami-Dade. That 50,000 vote margin went to 1,100 votes in about 15 minutes when those came in. And so I think what's going to happen in this race right now is this is very telling. I think most everything that is solid red is in. The deep blue is not fully in.
I'm not sure you know the answer to this. Well, why does Broward and Miami always come in so late?
Well, you can also look at the voting technology in those areas. Absentee, they have a lot of absentee ballot, but Matt is right. We're going to see this map change in about another hour.
And I'd say one more county, Hillsborough County, which we always thought as the bellwether county in Florida, also still, almost 10% of the votes account there, and that is a good vote for Democrats.
And he's up right next door in Pinellas, which is the Tampa suburbs as well, a bellwether county that almost always picks the winner in this state. Let's see where he's at right now. It's one of the smaller counties, but he's up 52.5. That's a good number. Even though it's a smaller county, it's a bellwether county. You want to be up there.
And let's not forget, this is the state that Donald Trump calls his second home. There's a very interesting dynamic between Donald Trump and Rick Scott. Scott really tried to distance himself from Donald Trump through much of this after the hurricane. He ran an ad saying that when I don't agree with it, when I don't agree with him, I say it. But we're looking at a number of things in this race right now. Puerto Ricans who have moved to the state of Florida in the wake of Hurricane Maria, and the youth vote. Let's not forget the Parkland massacre. One source on Capitol Hill told me that in this race, not just particularly to Florida, but around the country, the youth vote could end up being the X factor come tonight.
I'll tell you one thing Rick Scott is going to like in these early exit polls, as this is a nail biter in Florida, always is. But look at the demographics when you break it down. Donald Trump approval. This is a state that he won by a little more than 1% over Hillary Clinton just 2 years ago. 51% of the voters who turned out in Florida today said they liked the job that President Trump is doing. When asked if he was a factor in the vote, this one is kind of interesting to reconcile with what I just showed you. 22% they said they turned out to support Trump. 33% said they turned out to oppose. But look at that. 43% fully said Trump not a factor. You break down by issues. Let's look at what's important to Florida voters. Healthcare by far, issue number one. We're seeing this over and over again in so many of these important states. And when you break it down from healthcare to pre-existing conditions, which is what Democrats in these final weeks tried to make these campaigns about, 48% say the Democratic Party. But there are some good signs in there for Rick Scott and for people who were concerned about Donald Trump being attached to them. Cecilia said Rick Scott tried to separate himself, at least when it came to the hurricane and a few other issues. But by and large, Florida voters today said they approve of what they're seeing from Donald Trump.
And Mary, you've been hearing from Democrats in Florida.
Yeah, I've been talking with some top Senate Democratic aides. One just told me Florida is a little too close for them at this point, not feeling very comfortable. Asked what they think of the night overall. 2 words: not great.
That sums it up. We'll be right back.
A migraine hope. To be there for the good and not so good. For the mundane, the awe-inspiring, the heart-racing, the heartbreaking. That's what life is all about. Showing up. Unless migraine steals your chance to say, I am here. That's why we created Aimovig, a preventive treatment for migraine in adults. 1 dose once a month. Aimovig is proven to reduce the number of monthly migraine days. For some, that number can be cut in half or more. The most common side effects are pain, redness or swelling at the injection site, and constipation. These are your days. What will each one bring? Doesn't matter. As long as you can say, I am here. Talk to your doctor about preventing migraine with Aimovig and be there more.
Let's see what we got.
Whoa, hey, Portal, call Lauren. Oh, it's moving.
If I go over here and
You can see him here, right?
Hey, Casey, it's nice to see you, man.
Last time I bought a used car, I ended up paying too much. It's pretty embarrassing.
Carfax can help. At Carfax.com, you get the most accurate price based on the Carfax report. Stop the shame of overpaying and start your used car search today at Carfax.com.
Here, I just need you to tell me the truth. I think it's true. I've been honored at festivals from Toronto to Telluride. Morty Race is a stunning achievement. Hailed as a story that demands to be told. It's one of the very best pictures of the year. Morty Race, rated R.
What if numbers tell only half the story? At T. Rowe Price, hundreds of our experts go beyond the numbers to examine investment opportunities firsthand. Like a biotech firm that engineers a patient's own cells to fight cancer. This is strategic investing. Because your investments deserve the full story. T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence.
Trivago filters by average guest rating based on millions of reviews across multiple websites. So when I read excellent cleaning, I know I can rest easy in my ideal hotel. Hotel? Trivago.
Are you ready for a triple dose of crazy drama? Bring it. Consider it brought. First, a revealing new craze. I'm talking to other women.
Yeah.
Then it's Station 19 to the rescue. And it's a how to get away with murder face-off.
You never gone up against the governor, and you've never been up against me either. Right.
TGIT is all new. Thursday on ABC.
Back now at ABC News election headquarters here in New York. Let's take a look at where things stand now in the House and the Senate. So far, the Democrats have picked up 2 seats in the House. They need 23 to take control. In the Senate so far, a good night for Republicans. They've actually extended their majority, picking up 1 seat, the Indiana Senate seat of Joe Donnelly. That's the state of in the House and the Senate. So far, I want to check in also on governor's races. We haven't talked too much yet about the Georgia governor's race. I want to go to Steve Osunsami in Atlanta, Georgia, where Stacey Abrams, a Democrat, had a bid to become the first African-American governor of the state of Georgia, first African-American female governor in the country. But so far, at least, she is trailing badly behind the Secretary of State, the Georgia Secretary of State, Brian Kemp. Steve.
There are still people in line. They just announced this a second ago after singing the national anthem and singing the Black national anthem, that there are people in line in some of the largest counties, in Fulton County here and in Gwinnett County, which is north of here. Some polling locations have been extended till 10 p.m. I will say that the mood here is that they are preparing for the long haul. We listened in on some of the campaign calls over the weekend. They're expecting a runoff, most likely tonight, and are lawyered up, preparing to sue Brian Kemp and to sue the counties to extend early voting, because if there is a runoff in this election, that would take place on December 4th. There are more than 2 candidates in this race. There's also a libertarian candidate. One person has to get above 50% or above. Because of the polling on this, they're expecting this, despite these numbers that you're reporting, they're expecting this to be very, very tight, and that we could be possibly not getting an answer to who's going to win this election or what's going to happen here till tomorrow morning.
Of course, there's only a runoff if neither candidate breaks 50% there. Of course, we keep on it. We do have something coming in right now. It's the governor of Illinois. It's a switch for the Democrats. J.B. Pritzker has defeated the incumbent Republican Bruce Rauner. J.B. Pritzker, billionaire venture capitalist, close ally of President Obama, has become governor of the state of Florida. And Chris Christie, excuse me, I'm sorry, state of Illinois. I had Florida on my mind. Chris Christie, big win there for J.B. Pritzker. Bronner had never quite, he was a businessman, never quite found his footing in that seat.
Bruce just never listened to people about how to try to work with the Democratic legislature to try to bring people together, get things. He didn't get a budget passed for years. You just can't do that. When you're a Republican who went to the blue state, you've got to work with the Democratic legislature and get things done. Bruce never learned to do that, and tonight he's paying the price.
Matthew Dowd, the Democrats really hoping that these governor's races in the Midwest become their new base.
Yeah, and obviously Illinois is a Democratic state. Hillary Clinton carried it heavy. And I think that they're watching Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. They've already secured Pennsylvania. I think that Iowa is an open state. I think that's where the Democrats, if they have a really good night, if they have a good night in any part of this, it's going to be in those governor's races.
We have some other results coming in the Senate. We have the Minnesota Senate race, Democrat Amy Klobuchar, Senator Amy Klobuchar, cruising to re-election there in the state of Minnesota. She's talked about as a possible 2020 candidate as well. In the state of New Mexico, Senator Martin Heinrich will get his second term. He defeated a contractor, McRich, there in the state. He's going to defeat. He's behind right there, but we project that Martin Heinrich will win the Senate seat in the state of New Mexico. In New York, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand has won re-election. We project that she will win in the state of New York. And in the state of Wisconsin, Senator Tammy Baldwin will win, will be re-elected in the state of Wisconsin. Stephanie Cutter, Democratic strategist, joining us as well. The women Democrats tonight doing pretty well.
They are. And I think that we can see across the board that women are turning out. However, I think the women are turning out. I think men aren't going to Democrats at as a high of a margin as we originally thought. There's still a lot left out there. But for the senators in blue states, they're winning handedly. We still have a lot of competitive races.
The fact that the House doesn't seem to be coming in quite the way the Democrats hoped.
I think my explanation really is that these are largely suburban districts. Many were toss-ups, many were lean Republican. I think women are turning out in these suburbs, but men are supporting Donald Trump for a good reason, the economy. And they don't want to change that up. And I think that's not something that we had projected.
You can't underestimate the power that the president has when he lands in these states. And we've seen him travel just recently in the last few days, a number of states a day. You look at states like Tennessee and Indiana, where Republicans are doing better than people were expecting. And I think what he does is he riles up his base, reminds them why he won and why he needs people on his team to fulfill his agenda. So I think it's more effective when he's on the ground. They're bringing the candidates on stage than people give him credit for.
Terry Moran, Stephanie also hit on a point that perhaps we haven't talked about enough tonight. The economy. The economy is going absolute gangbusters right now. That could be working for Republicans.
It usually would, and we were distracted to some degree by what Donald Trump shifted the debate to on immigration. But one other thing about Donald Trump, he tells a story at these rallies, a story of American greatness that I think a lot of people plug into, and Democrats talk about healthcare. What's the story they're telling about our country?
And the story that the president is telling a story. It looks like a lot of people are also willing to overlook some of the president's rhetoric, the things that he says that aren't true.
Well, and it is women who we expected to see tonight to be leaving because of that rhetoric. But, you go back to Donald Trump in these rallies, he says, no one knows these crowds like I do. And he is expecting that to illustrate, to reflect itself tonight, these thousands and thousands of people that we've seen in these rallies there.
A lot more vote to count. We'll be right back.
When I tried it, I felt better than I ever had, so I just kept on doing it. This is a true story about a relationship between a father and son. It's about how addiction affects relationships. I thought we were closer than most fathers and sons. I'm really sorry. Even at its lowest, you can still see that light that's burning within this kid that we've always loved. I see the movie as full of joy and hope. Beautiful boy. Rated R. Now playing in select theaters.
Carl, I didn't know we were having dinner tonight.
You are.
Dandruff.
Keep dandruff from ruining date night.
Carl and I go everywhere together.
With Selsun Blue, it's powerful relief from flakes and itch.
How could you? Selsun Blue.
The new Roomba i7 Plus is your floor's best friend. Only Roomba uses 2 multi-surface rubber brushes to grab and remove pet hair, and the Roomba filter captures 99% of dog and cat allergens. If it's not for my robot, it's not a Roomba.
2018 midterm elections are here. You need up-to-the-minute information, results, and analysis. But most of all, you need graphs. How many graphs are we going to give you this election night? So many, you'll need a graph to keep track of them. Jimmy Kimmel Live after the midterms. Night of a Million Graphs. Live tonight on ABC.
Wednesday. Move over, Queen, because the Goldbergs will rock you. I'm so sorry. With the power of karate. A new Goldbergs Wednesday on ABC.
How do you show up? Do you just bring it? Or do you bring it all? Third row, like a pro. Get nearly $3,800 total value on this all-wheel drive 2019 Acadia SLT1 when you finance through GM Financial. Plus, current non-GM owners and lessees switch to GMC and get $2,500 additional purchase cash.
It is hard to find your footing, so you need people that you're close to help guide you.
I think about how important it was for me to have the role models that I've had.
I wasn't able to get there alone. He essentially plucked me out of obscurity.
He's the one who said, hey man, this is your life. This is what you need to do.
Nobody can do it alone. The more help you can get along the way, the faster you can achieve your goals.
I'm in it to fly.
To help people achieve their dreams.
To speak for those who cannot.
Whatever you're in it for, we're in it together.
This is an ABC 7 Eyewitness News Vote 2018 election update.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Alan Kraszewski with Cheryl Burton. We've been following that breaking election news tonight. Governor Bruce Rauner has conceded his race to Democrat J.B. Pritzker. This happened about half an hour ago at this point.
Well, J.B. Pritzker is expected to speak any moment now, and we will bring that to you live when it happens. Now, here's a look at the numbers so far, with 63% of the 36% reporting of the precinct. So 62% for J.B. Pritzker, and then 33% for the former governor of Illinois. Of course, he is the governor-elect now at 62% with more than 1 million votes cast, with 36% of the precincts reporting at this hour. So let's go live now to Rob Elgas with Governor Rauner's campaign with reaction there. Rob.
Cheryl and Alan, good evening. This election is over. That's how Governor Bruce Rauner started his remarks here in front of his supporters. He took the stage at 7:54 and spoke for about 11 minutes. He thanked three groups, or heroes as he called them: veterans and active duty members, police and first responders, and children of the state of Illinois. He said, put aside partisan politics, move forward. So much work needs to be done. And he thanks all the people of Illinois for the opportunity to serve you.
I spoke to Mr. Pritzker moments ago. To Mr. Pritzker, I said, Godspeed. I hope and pray you serve Illinois well. And I look forward to assisting with full effort for a smooth transition so that the people of Illinois' best interest is served at all times.
His campaign telling us as this evening proceeded, the amount of money spent by J.B. Pritzker may have put them up front. The governor spending more than $70 million. Governor-elect Pritzker spending well over $170 million. Alan and Cheryl.
I mean, as incredible as it's long been talked about here, U.S. history being made with regard to this race in terms of the amount of money spent. The two candidates together putting in more than $250 million. And of course, the Democrats in particular will be watching closely to see how the other statewide races may possibly be lining up in their favor tonight.
36 governor's mansions at stake tonight. Well, let's go live tonight to J.B. Pritzker's campaign headquarters, where they're celebrating at the Marriott Marquis. And Craig Wallace joining us live with the latest there. Craig, how's the mood?
Cheryl, you can only imagine what the mood would be here tonight with the race having been called some time ago now. There's just a very exciting crowd here to hear a number of speakers. Dick Durbin's getting ready to speak right now. You know, there's been a lot of attacks that the governor has launched against J.B. Pritzker, and he's pretty much proven to be the Teflon candidate and now the governor-elect of the state of Illinois. As Rob mentioned, $170 million or so of his own money poured into it. He said every bit of that was worth it. Democrats very much made health care and the issue of coverage for pre-existing conditions a major issue in this campaign, very much resonated with women who have been considered a key element in this election race, and probably also for the millennials who have come out in droves in this election. But this has been just a remarkable number, as you were reporting earlier, with the number showing J.B. Pritzker about 62% and Bruce Rauner about 33%. That's an absolutely stunning margin. It'll probably close it a little bit, but J.B. Pritzker pulling away with this race. He should be coming out in about 10 minutes. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Craig, thanks so much. Well, of course, I'll be bringing that speech from J.B. Pritzker to you whenever he does come down to speak. I want to look at another race here tonight. We're talking about the margins here, and the margins here actually in the Attorney General's race this evening, looking very similar to the margins we're seeing in the governor's race tonight. That kind of 2-to-1 there. You're seeing now this is of course with 37% of the precincts in and reporting. State Senator Kwame Raoul with 62% over Erica Harold's 36% in the Attorney General's race tonight.
All right, very good. And be sure to stay with us all evening. We'll have another live update for you in just about 30 minutes. Then at 10 o'clock, we invite you to watch us at ABC7 Eyewitness News for team coverage from all the campaign headquarters and local election results and expert analysis. We'll see you back here in about 30 minutes.
Back here at ABC News Election Headquarters here in New York, 9:30 in the East. That's a look at what's happening in the Senate so far. Republicans have picked up one seat in the Senate, the seat of Joe Donnelly in the state of Indiana. Let's take a look at the House. Democrats so far have picked up 2 seats in the House. They need 23 to take control. It's coming in slowly for the Democrats, not as quickly as they had hoped. We do have some more House races coming in. We don't have to project. We want to show you what's happening right there. They're in the state of Florida, District 26. Debbie Mercosur-Powell is up against the incumbent Republican, Congressman Carlos Curbelo. He's seeking a 3rd term. Donna Brazil, this is one Democrats have high hopes for.
Look, Democrats put a lot of resources in this race. The night is still young, George, and while many people believe that Democrats can overcome the hurdles of gerrymandering, many of these seats are very difficult to win. They should be called reserve seats because they're so red. Democrats need to not only get out their vote, but also attract independents and to get millennials. And in some places, Democrats will win. In some places, it's going to be a very difficult hurdle.
Also looking at the state of Virginia, where the Democrat Elaine Luria is up against the incumbent Congressman Scott Taylor. She is leading right now. This is part of a pattern we see on the Democratic side. Martha, retired Navy commander.
Retired Navy commander, but she is running against the incumbent, who is a retired Navy SEAL. So that kind of the battle of the Navy going there. She's from ship. She's an engineer. She's a very, very smart woman. But it's unclear whether she was able to capitalize on a kind of a mini scandal with Scott Taylor about some signatures he was, because some of his people were trying to get apparently signing on to independents to challenge her. One fun fact about this, Luria voted for Taylor in the primary and the general election in 2016. She's running against him now. She's doing fairly well. Trump, of course, in this district won by a very slim margin, but a big, big military community.
What a difference 2 years makes. Mary Bruce, this is the race the Democrats had identified they really thought they're going to win.
Yeah, and so far, look, Democrats have not been seeing a lot of those races that they were looking for turning their way. But it is early. But that wave that they were expecting, you're not seeing that crest just yet. But keep in mind what states they're still keeping a close eye on. Pennsylvania, Virginia, New Jersey, a lot of those races the Democrats are closely watching. We still are waiting to hear.
Waiting to hear that. We're also waiting to hear from the state of North Carolina, where Dan McCready, an Iraq war veteran and Democrat, is up against the Mark Harris, the Southern Baptist Patchy seat. That is very close as well, Mark. This was another toss-up, but one Republicans felt they had a little bit of a better hand.
The district hasn't been represented by a Democrat in 55 years. Mark Harris, a Southern Baptist preacher, he's very leaning full into Trump. Dan McCready, the Iraq war veteran, he touts his Christian roots, saying he was baptized while in Iraq with water from the Euphrates River.
Waiting for New Jersey to come in, one of the key races there in the state of New Jersey. Andy Kim, the Democrat, up against the incumbent Republican Tom MacArthur. He's seeking a 3rd term. MacArthur leading right now, a lot of votes yet to come in. John Carl, Tom MacArthur was an architect of the tax firm, not popular in the state of New Jersey.
No, and Republicans were worried going in tonight that there could be a bloodbath in New Jersey. One Republican operative told me you could see a situation where they lost all their House seats. That's not happening. That is not happening. We've seen Chris Smith won. That was a safe district, and we see MacArthur with a lead there.
Chris Christie, of the incumbent Republicans in danger in New Jersey, is MacArthur the one who has the best shot?
MacArthur will be the strongest. It's the strongest district of the ones that are in play. CD2, which was Frank LoBianco, who has retired, that one will probably be lost tonight to Jeff Van Drew, a Democratic state senator. And the one to really watch tonight, I think, about whether the Democrats are going to get a majority or not, is the 7th district. That's Leonard Lance against Tom Malinowski. There has been a ton of money spent there. Lance is a long time. His father was a legislator. His grandfather was a legislator. His father wrote the New Jersey Constitution. He's the Republican against Malinowski, who is a very talented candidate. If whoever wins that one, I think, may tell us a lot about who's going to win the House.
Let's go back to Nate Silver right now. What are you seeing in your forecast now as this vote is coming in?
So we are waiting for calls. We're in a bit of a holding pattern like the rest of the country, I think. There are a few races. Mike Kaufman's district in Colorado, for example, is a likely Democratic pickup. We have not called it yet. There are a couple in Virginia where Democrats are up by a percentage point or so, but 90% plus of the vote is in. I don't know if you can pull up the graphic. We do show a graphic that shows the range of uncertainty in the outlook. So you've gone from 30-something Democratic pickups to 20-something, but there is still a big range. It is ultimately about calling seats and picking up seats. There are going to be some called, I would think, the next half hour or so. But it's going to be a long night.
It's going to be a long, but just as we compare to where we were at the beginning of the night, are you now, from what we've seen come in so far, even though a lot has not come in, I think coming into tonight, you saw the average Democratic pickup was what, 38?
36
seats.
Yeah, but a range from 20 to 55, and we'll probably wind up within that range, and it's narrowed a little bit. But what happened is that the opportunity for Democrats to win in very Trump-leaning areas, they thought they could pick up a seat in West Virginia, for example. That was called very early against Ojeda, the Democrat. If you ask me to bet, and our model does make bets, it would say more likely than not they get there in the suburbs, they maybe get there a little bit out west. I mean, California is going to be a big part of the story. But the really big blue wave, where they win 45 seats, you have to go deep into Trump territory, and they haven't really won any of those races yet.
Yeah, Tom, go to your board, because we can see it right there. You see all those red check marks on the board of the states that have come in early.
You see them all here. Florida, they're still performing well. Republicans did very well in Florida, only losing so far 22nd. We're still holding out in 26. But, George, the other thing we have to talk about here, we're still waiting on 85 races. There are several races in California where Democrats think they're going to do well. There are races in Texas that Democrats feel they can pick up some seats. We still have Michigan. We still have seats in New Jersey. And, of course, we haven't even talked about Pennsylvania yet. Redistricting there is going to help Democrats.
Matthew Dow, you talked about Florida in 2000. If we're waiting for California House seats, we could be waiting a month.
Yeah, because it's a huge chunk of those are ballots by mail. They have to count them over days and days and days and days. If we get to California and the Democrats are at 20 seats or net 19 seats, we could be here 10 days from now.
Okay, right now, let's take a look at the big state of Florida. Tom, let's vote for Florida Senator Stewart and keep an eye on that all night long right now. Still close there in the state of Florida, the biggest prize of the night.
George, this has gotten really, really interesting. So, Scott, okay, so look, we have all these people voting. We're at 3.8 million, and what's come down to right now is about 60,000 votes an hour ago. Scott picked that up he's opened the margin only by 4,000 votes, but that's what we're talking about. It's so close, and it has come down to Broward and Miami-Dade County. I've been checking all over the state to see how some of the other bellwethers were doing, and Nelson's doing well, like places like St. Lucie, Pinellas County. He's winning all these bellwethers, so he should be doing okay. The problem is he's overperforming in Broward County. He's underperforming in Miami-Dade. Overall in South Florida, when we talk about Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade County, Rick Scott's doing better than President Trump did, and President Trump won this state. So it may have paid off, to go and campaign and tell people in Puerto Rico he cared about them, to break with the president on gun control after Parkland. Those things may have helped Scott, but this race is still so tight. And when we talk about Broward County, and I think it's going to come down to Broward, Miami-Dade, 83% reporting. We still have 17% left there and 9% in Miami-Dade.
Okay, what are you seeing in Florida, David?
Well, I think the most important thing to look at Florida is Donald Trump's approval rating. He won by 100,000 votes, as we know, so close, a little more than 1% 2 years ago. 51% more than half of the voters who turned out in Florida say they approve of President Trump's job performance. But Rick Scott, as you know, was an early supporter of Donald Trump, and I was down there after the hurricane, and he took a break from campaigning, and he did not want to talk about the campaign. He wanted to make it clear that it was about the response, and Cecilia alluded to this earlier. They're concerned on both sides of this about the displaced Puerto Rican, the American citizens from Puerto Rico who were there after that Hurricane Maria, and of course the hurricanes this year. Rick Scott's been very careful about
distancing himself from the president in moments when he needs to, but then embracing the president in other moments. And I've got to say, they've got to be happy within the Scott camp when they look at these approval ratings. Donald Trump is still very well liked in a state that he's adopted as his home state.
We're hearing from the White House right now. Sarah Sanders came out and spoke to reporters just a couple of minutes ago. I think we have the tape ready. Let's take a look.
I think James Carville said it best when he said anybody that was anticipating a blue wave tonight's not going to get it. Maybe you get a ripple, but I certainly don't think that there's a blue wave.
Cecilia Vega, the people in the White House feeling a lot better right now than they did going into today.
George, leading up to tonight, every White House official, senior White House official, and even Republicans on Capitol Hill were convinced that the House would fall to the Democrats. They were heading into this night thinking that this was their loss, that eventually tomorrow morning they would be backed into a corner facing things like investigation and the big other I word, impeachment. You heard it there from Sarah Sanders. Now she's sounding a little more like Nancy Pelosi was today, saying we've got this in the bag.
Okay, we do have another result coming in right now. It comes from the state of Pennsylvania. Congressman Connor Lamb, Democrat. He is switching. He is going to win right there. His race against Congressman Keith Rothfus. Of course, he won a special election earlier in the year, but then had to run in a new district after the state Supreme Court threw out the old districts. And John Carver said he's going to win pretty handily there. Third pickup for the Democrats.
He's going to win. He was expected to win. Frankly, his runoff, his special election race was tougher than this one, but another pickup. And remember, if the Democrats are going to win control of the House, they have to basically clean up in Pennsylvania. Especially with what we've seen happen in Florida, they've got to do very well in Pennsylvania.
That is so true, especially the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Absolutely. And this is, again, a place where the redistricting makes all the difference. Most of these states we're looking at have huge Republican advantages in these districts. That's why it's been so tough all along. But Pennsylvania redistricted in favor of the Democrats, and the courts upheld it, and now you're seeing that they're likely to do well there. But that's why this is so important in terms of these gubernatorial races as well, George, because the Democrats have really bad seats drawn for them all around the country.
And Chairman, you're seeing two different kinds of Democrats running this year. Some very very progressive running, others like Connor Lamb running as down the line, middle of the road Democrats.
And that is the fight that's coming in the Democratic Party. If this wave does turn into a ripple or less, that is going to be a big fight that they will have.
Another switch in the state of Pennsylvania. Democrat Mary Gay Scanlon has defeated Pearl Kim. That is another switch there for the Democrats. Right now, John Carl just said it. Donna Brazil, Pennsylvania is the place where Democrats have to score big.
There's no question. These districts are now fair to Democrats. I think Democrats are going to do very well in Pennsylvania 10, Pennsylvania 16. I spent time in Pennsylvania, Georgia. I found myself one morning in Paola, and I kept saying, where the hell am I? And they said Chester County. This is an area where Democrats outside of Philadelphia, they're looking to pick up seats. I think we're going to see a lot of women pick up those seats for Democrats in Pennsylvania.
I know Paola real well. That's where my wife was born. And it is a really Republican swingy district. I think the biggest one, those two we just called were layups for the Democrats after redistricting. The one you really have to look at is CD1, because you got an incumbent Congressman Fitzpatrick who is there, who's been popular. It's going to be a very close race. If Fitzpatrick loses, then you're going to really see the Democrats, I think, run the table in Pennsylvania. If he doesn't, that may be another one of those seats like CD7 in New Jersey, where it's going to show that's where they came up short.
Stephanie, this has become a battle of attrition for the House.
Well, I do want to remind everybody that we have most of the country out, and there are a lot of House seats out there that are extremely competitive that are now going to start to come in. We're starting to see Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Democrats are still favored to win the House. So I want us to take a deep breath on this. However, it is much harder than anybody thought.
I love when my friends from the Democratic Party are saying it's going to be a long night. That's really good for Republicans, George.
Let's talk to Eva Pilgrim in Philadelphia. Eva.
George, it's a real opportunity for Democrats here in Pennsylvania. We've seen those two returns come in, but there could be as many as 6 seats really up for grabs for Democrats here in the state of Pennsylvania. It's because of that redistricting. These districts look completely different than they did before. And the Democratic Party telling us before this night that they really, really looked at these districts and acted actively recruited candidates from these areas with real roots from these areas to run in this area so that they could potentially win these 6 seats. If they could get 6 seats in Pennsylvania, that would put a real dent in that 23 that they need to make this flip. The other big story here in Pennsylvania, it's a big night for women. We have seen already Mary Gay Scanlon win. There are potentially 3 other women from Pennsylvania that could tomorrow morning wake up as congresswomen. At this point, before tonight, there were no women going to Congress.
Eva, sorry about that. That was the chime. That means there is another switch is coming from the state of Colorado, where Jason Crow, former Army Ranger, has defeated Congressman Mike Coffman there in the state of Colorado. Martha Raddatz, again, a veteran.
A veteran defeating a 5-term congressman, Republican, a former Army Ranger, served in Iraq and Afghanistan. He is a first-time candidate. He wasn't even considering a run until Trump won. And it looks like he did it tonight.
Nate, so we're going to have to go to a break right now, but still everything coming in for the Democrats, what they needed.
Yeah, they are getting what they needed. They're not getting any more they need, so their margin's a lot thinner. We don't have the Kaufman call yet in our model. That will help Dems a bit. That's maybe their best pickup so far. They won all the layups. They won all the likely Democratic races. There's been no gigantic surprises. They haven't, again, won a lot of key toss-ups yet, and so that means it's going to be like kind of a slog.
Okay, we'll take a quick break.
You want a home with an extra bedroom because sometimes you have guests, but mostly you have stuff. You need Realtor.com, the home of home search. You want a home with at least 2,000 square feet. Actually, make it 2,500. You need Realtor.com, the home of home search.
This Thursday,
It's time.
meet the most dangerous girl in the world.
I won't have to again.
Claire Foy is explosive. Spider's Web, radar.
Better your selfie even after you take a shot. The new LG V40 thanks you.
Smile back.
I take medication for high blood pressure and cholesterol, but they may not be enough to protect my heart. Adding Bayer aspirin can further reduce the risk of another heart attack because my second chance matters. Be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen.
Fender biter. Seen it, covered it. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
You'll always be prepared with everything from cargo tech and cargo liners to floor liners and seat protectors. Because you never know when it's going to be a WeatherTech day. Order yours today at WeatherTech.com.
Follow me. I'm exhilarating about the girl in the spider's web. It's a gripping, visually impressive thriller full of stars.
Someone said, yeah.
Claire Foy is explosive.
Oscar with bus.
The girl in the spider's web, rated R.
This Sunday night, we're counting down to the biggest night in country music.
We're getting the party started early. Woo! I'm just really excited.
With the biggest stars. Oh, wow. And the biggest moments with Robin Roberts and Luke, Carrie, Brett, Lady Antebellum, Sugarland, Darius, Keith, and so many more. So how could you miss a night like this?
Good question.
It's a party you don't want to miss. Country music's biggest stars in the spotlight with Robin Roberts. Sunday night at 10, 9 Central on ABC.
Back now at ABC News headquarters here in New York, midterm elections 2018. What you're looking at right there is what we're seeing in the House so far tonight. So far, Democrats have picked up 5 seats in the House. They need 23 to take control. Let's look at the Senate. So far, the Republicans have extended their majority in the Senate. They picked up that seat of Joe Donnelly in the state of Indiana. They've extended their majority by 1, but a lot of vote yet to come in here in the midterm elections tonight. I want to take a look now at the Florida governor's race. Tom Yamas, why don't you go back to the board up there? This one is so close right now. The Senate race is close as well. What are we seeing here?
So, George, the first thing that jumped out at me, we've been tracking both the Florida governor's race and the Florida Senate race, both very close. The difference right now between Andrew Gillum and Ron DeSantis is nearly 100,000 votes. Still very, very close, but that margin is larger than what's in the Democratic Senate race with Nelson. The conventional wisdom was that Gillum was going to excite the party. He was going to excite Democrats. He would actually lift Nelson. Right now, Nelson's doing slightly better than he is in the state. When you look at the state, Democrats are doing well where they need to be doing well. Like we said earlier, Gillum, like Nelson, he's overperforming in Broward, not doing as well in Miami-Dade, but they're still up there. And the big question remains, what happens in Broward and Miami-Dade County? I still believe this race is going to come down. Both the Senate race and the governor's race is going to come down to South Florida, both Broward and Miami-Dade. And also, George, you got to remember, there's another House race we're watching, Florida 26, Representative Carlos Curbelo. The one thing all these races have in common, Hillary Clinton won in these districts, and that's why we're watching them so close.
Keep an eye on that. We have another result in the governor's, and that's the state of Colorado, where Congressman Jared Polis has defeated Walker Stapleton there in the state of Colorado. Jared Polis becoming the first governor of the United States who's actually in a same-sex marriage. Stephanie Cutter, we're seeing a very diverse array of candidates on the Democratic side.
We are, and I think that's a good thing for the party, a good thing for the country. Jared Polis ran a great race in Colorado. That was a race really defined by local issues that matter to the people of Colorado. It's an important pickup, and it's an important race for us to have. I think Walker Stapleton, the Republican that ran in that race, never really caught on. It became an issue that he wasn't born in Colorado. It was a very localized race, and it's a great win.
And of course, Colorado always an important state in presidential elections as well. Let's dive into the House a little bit more right now. Look at the raw vote coming in from the state of Pennsylvania. There you see Chrissy Houlihan running in District 6 up against Greg McCauley. Martha, I keep coming back to
I know. There's another veteran with a very strong showing here. Let me give you a couple of things here. There are about 200 military veterans running for Congress, incumbent 63, Republicans 102, Democrats 62, male 188, female 12. Chrissy Houlihan is one of those 12.
Donna Brazile, you campaigned for?
Campaign, I went to Paola. No.
AOB, not Paola.
Okay.
My mother will yell at me if I get it wrong. Come on.
Look, Martha said it. She's one of many veterans that's running across the country. She ran on education, healthcare. When I was up there in Pennsylvania, people turned out to support her. She is really one of the brightest stars in the new Democratic horizon.
I talked to her just a couple of weeks ago, and she felt very confident. She was sticking very much to the issues up there, and of course her service.
Of course, this is a one the Democrats have to win.
Well, and also to take the big picture of Pennsylvania, we have 6 potential pickups left for Democrats. Right now, we're tracking the Democrats are leading in all 6 of those. One's very, very tight, just a handful of votes, but they are tracking to do very well in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we've got another one coming in Pennsylvania right now, Pennsylvania 7. Let's take a look. Actually, this is different. We now have a result coming in, and this is from the state of Minnesota, where Democrat Dean Phillips is a projected winner. They're in the 3rd district of Minnesota, defeating the incumbent Congressman Eric Paulson, seeking a 6th term. This is a Republican in a district won by Clinton, so another Clinton district coming back home to see if they get them.
And a Republican that kept his distance from Trump, and we were looking for potentially a lot of women defections in these suburbs there. This is the Twin Cities suburbs, a highly educated district with a long history of electing Republican moderates there.
We're just going to pull up state of Pennsylvania. Let's go back to Pennsylvania right there, where you see Susan Wild up against Marty Northstein. The vote coming in there again. Wide lead so far, but we're not ready to project that. And then next door in the state of New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill, former Navy pilot prosecutor, up against the state assemblyman Jay Weber. Mikey Sherrill, bright star Chris Christie for the Democrats.
That's my congressional district, George. Long held by Rodney Frelinghuysen, who retired. Mikey Sherrill raised more money, $7 million, than any congressional candidate in New Jersey history. I got 3 pieces of mail from her in the last 10 days. So that's how much money she had to spend. Unfortunately, no, George. It didn't work, but she raised an enormous amount of money. Again, a veteran. and a former federal prosecutor.
And you brought up Rodney Ferlandez. He's kind of really a dying breed in the Northeast, moderate Republicans.
It's unfortunate because Rodney represented that district for a long time. His father before that for many years. And Rodney was a guy who I think really just got tired of all the contentiousness in Washington. He was chairman of Appropriations Committee, and he retired as chairman of Appropriations.
Part of the reason the Democrats are out because of so many retirements. We do have another switch right now. It's from the state of Kansas, red state of Kansas, where Sharice Davids has defeated incumbent Congressman Kevin Yoder, who is seeking a fifth term, a pickup for the Democrats in the state of Kansas. And Stephanie Cutter, actually, let me start out with Cecilia first. Again, just we talked about the range of diversity in the Democratic Party. What a story she is.
Oh, completely. She is openly gay Native American, now making her the very first Native American woman in Congress. And I should say this comes at a time where President Trump is using this phrase repeatedly, Pocahontas. This was a Republican in a district that Clinton narrowly won. And Trump had tweeted for the Republican in there saying that he was strong on crime and borders.
Democrats have picked up 7 seats. They need 23 to take control. We're going to take a break.
Today, we will steal Christmas in style. If I'm going to become Santa, then I need to get into character. What's Santa have to do? That's hurtful. Goatee. This is the loudest snow I've ever heard in my life. Grinch, PG.
Geico makes it so easy to manage my policy. With an app that lets me pay my bill, add a vehicle, or even file a claim, it's not just easy. It's aerobics in a recliner easy.
Move it! Shimmy! And swivel! Keep it going! Keep home! Keep out there!
It's not just easy, it's Geico easy.
Today is a special day for our rookies. Everybody gets a new training officer.
Just eventually get the most of the experience.
Quiet time, starting now. You think you're the first rookie to date a cop? You risk losing it completely if you're the problem now.
You right, your girlfriend?
Hey, kids. Ever been tased?
All next Tuesday on ABC and catch up on all episodes streaming now and on demand.
It's the one and only Ford Truck Month. The place to find one-of-a-kind deals on Ford F-Series and the brand with the most J.D. Power Initial Quality Awards. With best-in-class towing and torque, these bad boys make the rules and break them. That's why it's America's best-selling truck 41 years straight. Unlike ribs at a barbecue, these deals won't last long. Ford Truck Month. It's buy now time, partner.
Young F-150 with 0% financing for 60 months plus $3,300 bonus cash, or at least one for $199 a month. Only at your local Ford store.
Where is he? He's going to be late for group. I feel awful. I keep telling people that AT&T's gig speed internet has limited availability, but I don't say how limited. Well, at least I never tried to poison anyone.
Mirror, mirror, how many AT&T customers can get gig speed?
Like 10%.
The mirror never lies, dear.
Also, back when Greg was in college, he used to take...
That's enough.
Nice try, AT&T. But limited means limited. Xfinity delivers gig speed to more homes than anyone.
This is an ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Vote 2018 election update.
Good evening, everybody. An early concession in the race for Illinois governor about an hour ago. Bruce Warner thanked his supporters at the Drake Hotel.
Succeeding the race in the race for governor, his opponent, Democrat J.B. Pritzker. We have not heard from him just yet. We're expecting he'll be taking the stage with his victory speech in a very short period of time. We'll bring that to you whenever it happens. But you're looking at the latest numbers we have, with 57% of the vote in across the state. A substantial, you can see the substantial lead that he had, nearly a 2-1 margin with 57% down in the 30s for Governor Bruce Rauner. Let's go to Craig Wall at Pritzker headquarters tonight. Craig?
We are expecting J.B. Pritzker to come down in just a little bit, but what we were told by his campaign is they're coordinating with Kwame Raoul, who is supposed to speak to his supporters shortly at his location. So after Kwame Raoul speaks, I believe then we will hear from Juliana Stratton and J.B. Pritzker here at their campaign. Obviously, they're ecstatic here. This crowd is. Balloons are ready to be dropped in a major, major celebration. Perhaps the most surprising thing about this race, at least based on the numbers we're seeing right now, is the margin of victory. The polls, as you may know, showed somewhere between 16 and 22%, although those polls were back about a month ago. But the margin of victory, if it continues to hold, will be huge for J.B. Pritzker. The numbers pointing to that right now. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Craig, thank you so much. It was billed as the Battle of the Billionaires. Now let's move on to the Attorney General's race. Republican Erica Harold has already conceded to Democrat Kwame Raoul with 56% of the precincts reporting at this hour, 58% winning. Now let's go live to ABC7's Michelle Gallardo. She is with Democrat Kwame Raoul in downtown Chicago at the Fairmont Hotel. Michelle, what's going on there?
You know, as you can imagine, there is a celebratory mood in the room here. It was just minutes ago, as you mentioned, that Erica Harold came out to concede defeat, admitting that State Senator Kwame Raoul had won this race. And we are expecting him to come down to address his supporters shortly. We will have that for you when it happens. Live at the Fairmont, I'm Michelle Gallardo, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Michelle, thanks. But I remind you to stay with us right here for updates throughout this evening.
Live from New York City and across the country, this is ABC News Election Night 2018. Now reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
And we're in our election headquarters here in New York. And what you see there is the story in the House right now. That is the big story of the night. So far, Democrats have picked up 8 seats. A new one just came in. We're going to call it right now. Democrat Mikey Sherrill in the state of New Jersey has defeated incumbent, Republican Jay Weber, new congressman.
Yeah, and listen, Jay was outraised 9-1 in a Republican district. So like I said before, she spent $7 million. Great story. You know, she's a combat veteran. She's a former federal prosecutor, and she worked this district really, George, almost from the time President Trump was elected.
Right. And we have another one coming in right now from the state of Virginia. Big one for the Democrats. Elaine Luria has defeated Scott Taylor in the state of Virginia, Virginia 2. This is one that Democrats, as we said earlier, Martha, had been counting on, had been hoping for.
They certainly have. And we just called 2 female veterans in a row. It shows the power of these women in these races. There are 10 Democratic women who are veterans running this time around, and just got 2 big ones.
Nate, are we seeing anything? Is any of this flipping you yet?
It is, yeah. Now, we are seeing now a more equivocal set of districts where you are seeing some tough races called for Democrats, for example, in Kansas 3 in the KC suburbs, in Virginia. So we're seeing the numbers tick back up where we most likely will see the House Senate split.
So you're saying most likely right now?
They're up to about, I mean, there are calls dropping now very often. But yeah, if we look at this right now, right, we can see the Senate House odds. You see Democrats are back up now to a 7 and 9 chance.
Almost where they began the night.
So it's really kind of come full circle. Yeah. In the Senate, Democratic odds took a plunge, never recovered. They were low to begin with. In the House, though, you have seen now, as races are actually called, or projected, as we say, you see now it looks more like we might have thought when the evening began.
And we have another one coming in right now. It comes from the state of New York, where Max Rhodes has defeated the incumbent Congressman Dan Donovan, seeking a 3rd term. Staten Island. John Cole, this was a tougher one for the Democrats.
This was a tough one. So what we're starting to see, George, is the Democrats winning every race where they were expected to win, and now finally picking up some of those that were more truly toss-up. The one you just called in Virginia, Virginia 2, and this in Staten Island.
In fact, yeah, this was leaning Republican, and our analysis is coming in.
Yep, surprise. Dan Donovan, former prosecutor, former DA, won a good primary. It does a good job out there. This one's a surprise. Republicans are surprised to lose Dan Donovan.
Yeah, in fact, they had defeated Dan Donovan, defeated the Michael Grimm with a strong endorsement from Donald Trump.
Yep.
They thought he was the strongest candidate. Democrats have taken it. David, let's take a step back and look at what the exit polls are telling us about the House.
Because what we're seeing now is sort of bearing out of what we're seeing in the exit polls. When you're asked who do you want to control the House, these are our exit polls tonight, preliminary results. Control the House. 53% of voters have turned out today. Look at this. Want the Democratic Party to control the House, perhaps as a check on President Trump, because Republicans obviously control everything right now. 43% wanted to stick with the Republican Party. When you break it down, men and women heading out to the polls today, 48% of men want the Democrats to control the House. 57% of women, you can see the gap right there. And you were talking about this earlier. As the economy goes, sometimes so goes the House, George, as you pointed out. People do believe the economy is good shape. 67% say excellent or good shape. But look at this. When you break it down, have you felt the effects of this improving economy? Far right of your screen there, 49%, about half of the voters turning out today say they feel exactly the same as they did a couple of years ago.
Let me bring this to Matthew Dad. We saw that 10 points in the generic in our exit poll. Normally, you would think the 10 points would lead to an easy Democratic win, but you've seen a lot of changes in our politics. We become more divided, more polarized, and the effects of gerrymandering.
Well, it's a combination of many things, and to harken back to what I said earlier, this is another pillar, another battle between geography and demography. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million votes, and she lost the Electoral College. Democrats, from our initial exit polling, have a 10-point generic advantage and are not sweeping away with this because they're running against red geography.
Mary Bruce, Nancy Pelosi came into the night saying she was 100% confident that the Democrats would take control. I think she is like those in the White House also now feeling a little bit better than she was at the beginning about what was happening then about an hour ago.
Yeah, I think Democrats are probably breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief as they see some of these new seats turning their way. And look, Nancy Pelosi, that was a bit of a bold move to come out and say 100% she was certain, but it does seem that the night at least is trending in that direction.
But I also think it's a 100% certain that this is going to be a pretty narrow win if they win. And maybe the thing that's not 100% certain is whether or not Nancy Pelosi will be the Speaker of the House. If this is a very narrow win, a very narrow takeover for the Democrats, it's a much harder.
Yeah, and Mary Bruce, we've already seen it. It's a little early to get to that, but we'll come back to this whole idea. You have seen several of these Democrats, including some who've won, like Conor Lamb, say they're not going to support Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, George, 44 Democratic candidates have said that they are not certain about her leading their party. You have 4 of those who have come out and said they are hard-nosed against Nancy Pelosi. So whether or not she is the next Speaker of the House, if, and that is a big if, Democrats take the House, will depend on the margin of victory for Democrats and the makeup of the caucus.
Another result is coming in for now comes from the state of Arizona. It's the governor's race in the state of Arizona where Governor Doug Ducey has defeated David Garcia, professor of education. He's seeking a second term. He has gotten it. Meghan McCain, your state.
I love him. I'm so excited. Tonight we're obviously looking at the senatorial race. He's a very popular governor. He was expected to be up by at least 10 points. If Martha McSally ends up winning, I think it will be in no small part to this man's popularity in Arizona. And I'm just thrilled, and it's really expected.
Yeah, he kind of walks the balance beam on President Trump.
He's magically a candidate that somehow gets Trump's endorsement and my mother's. So figure that out. And he's really good for Arizona in a lot of different ways.
I see him shaking.
Yeah, listen, Doug Ducey, incredibly talented candidate, and has been a really good governor. And the thing about what Meghan said is absolutely true. We're not ready to call anything yet, but if Martha McSally wins, she has better got a big thank you note for Doug Ducey. If Doug Ducey is going to carry her over the finish line.
He will have dragged her over the finish line.
Let's go next door to the state of Utah, where we're seeing we're going to take a look at the Senate race. There where Mitt Romney is projected to win the Senate race in the state of Utah. Of course, he's the former governor of Massachusetts, who ran the Winter Olympics in Utah for former presidential candidate as well. Abby Huntsman, that's your state.
We're going to have the Romney our lives forever, aren't we? So surprisingly, he did not swim right through the primaries. He actually had a runoff, and a lot of people were surprised by that. I've talked to people, I was just in Utah actually last weekend, and his goal is to go in with a lot of the moderate Republicans leaving or retiring. He's hoping to be that adult in the room, sort of that voice to bring the party back. How successful he'll be, who knows? I don't have a whole lot of faith in it today, but that's what he's planning.
That's what he wants to do, Mary Bruce. Let me bring this to you right now, because we said Bob Corker, who has been a frequent Trump critic, has now left. Senator Jeff Flake also retired from the state of Arizona. Mitt Romney, during the presidential campaign, gave that scathing attack on Donald Trump, was considered for Secretary of State, didn't get it, has somewhat moderated his tone.
Yeah, and Mitt Romney once called the president terribly unfit for office. Congress. And now a lot of people on the Hill are looking to Mitt Romney, wondering whether he can fill those shoes, whether he can be that Republican who's going to stand up to the president on so many issues like Corker and Flake have done. But Romney has kind of muted some of his criticism of the president. He said that he will support the president where they agree. He will speak out against him where they do not. So it will be interesting to see how much of a counterweight he is to Trump.
As you were talking, another result is coming in from the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania 6, Chester County, Chrissy Houlihan will win in the state of Pennsylvania, defeated Greg McCauley. You see it right there. So another pickup there for the Democrats as they move on towards the 23 they will need to take control. They have 11 right now. Let's go back to Eva Pilgrim, just outside of Philadelphia in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. Democrats encouraged as more of these numbers come in.
They are definitely encouraged, and you can hear here in this room, they keep cheering every time the one of the Democrats is announced. Right now on the stage, Mary Kay Scanlon is giving her a speech talking about this hard-fought battle. This was her race, at least, was one that we were predicting the Democrats would win. And the Democrats should pick up some of the seats here in Pennsylvania because of that redistricting. The really interesting thing that we're seeing play out here in Pennsylvania is the number of women. There were no congresswomen representing the state of Pennsylvania prior to this. And there's the potential for 4 women to go to Congress from the state of Pennsylvania. And that will be really interesting to watch as it plays out. How many seats will the Democrats be able to pick up here in Pennsylvania? That is the question. But chipping away at that 23 total that they need, George.
Okay, thanks very much. Cokie Roberts are saying, actually, before I call on you, we do have another projections from the state of Texas. Now, in the Senate race in the state of Texas, where we say now that Ted Cruz will win. He has defeated Congressman Beto O'Rourke in the state of Texas. He's the projected winner right now. Matthew Dowd, your state, Ted Cruz in the red state. It's a close win, but it's a win.
Yeah, it's a win. And, you know, as we talked earlier in the evening, Beto lit the fire of a lot of people, but this is still a very red state. It's moving, the growth of the Latino population, it's moving, and Beto made a game run. It probably will lose in single digits when the end of the night is in, which is the first time a Democrat has got that close in 25 years. But it's still a red state.
What happens to someone like Beto O'Rourke, who, as you say, lit the party on fire, raised so much money, raised a lot of hopes, doesn't get there, doesn't have a congressional seat anymore? Where does he go?
He says he's going back to El Paso and play with his kids and go back to his life. That's what he says. So, I mean, he's a guy that's been authentic in all of this. I think he's going to take a lot of time off. He's been traveling for 2 years straight, going to all 254 counties. He probably needs a nap or at least a week of rest on this. But he made a game run for it in a red state.
David, what are you seeing in Texas?
Well, you're looking at the breakdown of the voters. You know, these are some interesting numbers coming in. Even if Beto O'Rourke lost, he probably can be pretty proud of some of the voters he did get to come out to the polls. They set some records here for a midterm. 24% of the voters in Texas were Hispanic or Latino, 59% white. The issues in Texas driving this race, 38% said healthcare. That's not as far ahead as we've seen in some of the other states. 32% said immigration. That was, as you know, a big issue for Ted Cruz, pointing to the border wall, saying we must support this president. Beto O'Rourke saying we need more sensible immigration reform. 20%, 21% there, save the economy. And when you break this down, was Donald Trump a factor in your vote in Texas? Take a look at this. 22% said they supported, 28% said they opposed, but nearly half of the voters in Texas say Donald Trump was not a factor. Ted Cruz pulling it out.
Ted Cruz pulls it out in Texas.
We're just going to go to Pennsylvania. But first of all, you have a Pennsylvania call, right?
Do we have the chime here on this one?
Let's hope so.
Yeah, Pennsylvania 7, Susan Wild, thank you. I did have the call, but I didn't hear the chime, so I wasn't sure I could call. But we do have another winner there for the Democrat, John Carl.
And I want to say, this is a significant win. This is the most significant win so far in Pennsylvania, because this was a true battleground district. This was a district that Hillary Clinton won, but she won by only 1%. And it's a big pickup in Pennsylvania for the Democrats.
Cokie Roberts, we are seeing Pennsylvania come home the way they wanted it.
Now, the Republicans were saying that they expected Pennsylvania to be a bloodbath for them. That's the term they used. And it looks like it is. But one of the things that is true is that the Democrats worked very hard to recruit these candidates, particularly these women veterans.
We've got another one. This is a different one. This is in the state of Pennsylvania. It's a switch the other way. Guy Reschenthaler in the 14th district has defeated Bibiana Barrio there in the state of Pennsylvania. And this is an interesting one. Mary Bruce, this was an open seat. Connor Lamb had won the special election, but then he moved next door to the 17th district, so this was an open one. Republicans get to keep it.
Yeah, Connor Lamb switching districts in the middle, which gets to the big conversation we've been having about redistricting here in the state. So interesting that despite the fact that most of the redrawing there favored Democrats in this one seat, obviously helped the Republicans.
And let me just add, another veteran.
One more veteran right there. We're going to take a quick break.
You guys have an eye patch.
Treasure Island.
I mean, the photographer.
Any good?
The best.
You're prepared to sink your country into civil war.
We have to go back. We'll die if we go back.
I would have liked a more normal life. Maybe I just don't know how.
We still need glasses on table 10.
Can you drive us?
A family business should stay in the family. See how Lincoln's Insurance Solutions can help protect your family, your business, and everyone who counts on you at lincolnfinancial.com.
Sophia, it's good to see you.
Look familiar? If you're trying to hide excessive sweating, you're not alone. There are 15 million people suffering from excessive sweating. It's not just stress, and it's not just anxiety. It's a medical condition called hyperhidrosis, and many people don't know they have it, even if they've figured out interesting tricks to try to hide it. If this is you, visit CheckYourSweat.com and talk to a dermatologist about hyperhidrosis, a treatable medical condition.
I recently discovered that pistachios are a good source of protein. That's why they're my go-to snack while I get back in shape. That one's broken. I didn't know we were having dinner tonight.
You are.
Dandruff. Keep dandruff from ruining date night.
I go everywhere together.
With Selsun Blue, it's powerful relief from flakes and itch.
How could you? Selsun Blue.
Now this is good. We're talking dancing while eating good. The new creamy Vermont mac and cheese bowl. One of the many new craveably delicious bowls from Marie Callender's. It's good mood food.
This winter, a hero will fight. He's cold. What do you think? Sidekick material? Seriously, can't deal with you today. Mucinex Cold and Flu all in one. Fights. Fever, cough, sense pressure, just congestion, headache, basically your body all in one. Did you really need the caps lock? Hold this. Finally, a piece of the action! Get tough on cold and flu symptoms. Mucinex Cold and Flu all in one. Here's a political story I think everyone can enjoy. Jubal is bringing you up-to-the-minute coverage of the 2018 election, and he's doing it by graphs. So many graphs to keep track of the graphs. Good choice, America. Jimmy Kimmel Live after the midterms. Night of a million graphs tonight on ABC.
There's nothing like finding out your dad was a Russian spy.
A possible traitor, a soccer coach, and a chicken all walk into a Modern Family episode. Yeah, I know. But this ending is no joke.
You're pregnant.
Modern Family, Wednesday on ABC.
This is an ABC News election update. Now reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
And what we're reporting right now is that Republicans will keep the Senate. ABC News can project the Republicans will keep control of the Senate. Just been decided on the heels of another win in the state of North Dakota, where incumbent Democrat Senator Heidi Heitkamp has been defeated by Congressman Kevin Cramer, third-term Congressman. President Trump worked hard to get him into the race. Heidi Heitkamp came from behind 6 years ago, could not do it this year. John Paul.
This was another one of those votes where Kavanaugh loomed so large She voted against Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court. The president hammered her over and over again with it. And when she made that vote, she said that she essentially said that she knew that she was sealing her political fate. Is that what we saw?
Oh, absolutely. You could see Heidi Heitkamp's face when she made that decision in her interviews right afterward. But take a look. The exit poll shows us very clearly Heidi Heitkamp's vote against Kavanaugh. 8% said it was the most important factor. But more telling is that second number right there. 34% say it was an important factor in their vote. Look at this. When you take a look at when did North Dakotans decide who they were going to vote for, it wasn't the last few days, it wasn't even last week. They've made this decision sometime before. But remember what Heidi Heitkamp said. She said, do I want to continue?
All right, we are listening to Juliana Stratton making history tonight as the first African-American lieutenant governor here in the state of Illinois, as she delivers a powerful and testimonial speech as she introduces the new governor-elect of the state of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, spending more than $170 million of his own money, saying every penny was worth it. Let's hear his speech tonight.
Thank you all very much. Thank you to Juliana. Juliana, tonight you made history, and the people of Illinois are proud to have you partnered in helping to lead this state. Before I begin, I want to say a few words about someone without whom this night never could have happened. At every moment of our lives together, MK Pritzker has been the Rock of Gibraltar when the hurricanes came. Her spirit and her heart have given strength and meaning to our lives in every moment that we've been together. Thank you, MK, for being my life partner, for being my soulmate, and for being my love. And to our children, Teddy and Donnie, you make Mom and me so proud every day. Be who you are and continue to cut your own path in life. To my campaign manager, Ann Caprera, and to my deputy campaign manager, Quentin Fultz, and to our entire campaign leadership and staff, Democrats across the state, from county board races to statewide races, won in part because of you. You all win the Game of Thrones award tonight. Earlier this evening, I received a call from Governor Bruce Rauner, and I want to thank him for his service to this state over the last 4 years, and I wish him and his family well. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so grateful tonight to all of you in this room, those watching at home. Voting is, I love you too. Voting is an act of optimism, that the levers of our democracy still work. You embody that optimism. You light the beacon fire on the hill of history that signals from one generation to another that these are the things that we stand and fight for. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your faith in Juliana and me. Tonight, I want to share a story from the beginning of this campaign journey. From the beginning of this campaign journey, as we celebrate its end, I announced my candidacy on April 6th of 2017 in the field house of Grand Crossing Park here in Chicago. More than a century and a half ago, there was a train wreck in Grand Crossing, a disaster that was so tragic and so profound that it indelibly marked the community there for generations to come. The history of Grand Crossing was somewhat cynically noted when we chose its field house as the announcement site for my campaign. But I found a profound significance in Grand Crossing, a reminder that we have no right to walk away from the broken places of our past with no thought about how to mend them for the future. After all, in the years that followed the train wreck, the people of Grand Crossing came together to build a community, to show their faith in the power of their commitment to one another as neighbors. Today, there is a beautiful park there where seniors gather for exercise classes, families come to play, and children learn to swim amidst a diverse community of their peers. In Illinois, we have a history of building ourselves up from broken places, and the bonds we form in the process become the steel girders that hold us all together. I see those bonds in communities all across the state of Illinois, communities touched by both triumph and tragedy. From towns affected by tornadoes to cities redefining their economies, to neighborhoods of immigrants looking for hearth and home, to Black and brown communities overcoming discrimination and disinvestment. There is a special faith in the future, a light that burns in people who know both the agony of the hill and the freedom of the hilltop. And as your governor, I want to hoist that light high and let it show us the way. Like the social service workers across the state who help their fellow humans walk through their darkest hours. Like the entrepreneurs who are trying to remake old businesses into a new economy. From Tangled Root Brewery to Brown Sugar Bakery, our small business people have a commitment to the communities that they serve. They understand all the things that a job can mean for their employees, and their struggle is the struggle to build an economy for everyone in Illinois. Like the young people all across Illinois who see the rust on old ideas and dare to scare the dogma out of those who mistake tradition for truth. Most especially for the young people of color who have rejected a narrative thrust on them at birth and have chosen instead to write their own story. Like the immigrants who come to Illinois in the footsteps of people like my great-grandfather. They overcome diversity and plant their hope in a new place that they're just trying to understand. The innovation, the hard work, the ability to see a brighter future and a better future, even in the most trying of circumstances, is the light that immigrants bring to our country. And only in welcoming immigrants to this state and to this nation are we fulfilling the promise and potential of our founding. Like the women. The women who went from marching to running. The women of this day who stand on the crest of the wave of history and know that it comes to today with the force of the millions of voices long silenced and suddenly let free. You wear the mantle of this moment well. Especially the women of color who, in forcing your seat at the table, you made the table bigger and better and more bountiful for everyone. That is Illinois. Full of light that comes from the people who endure and overcome struggle. That light brought triumph tonight. After all, We're the land of Abraham Lincoln and Barack Obama. We're home to the world's largest ketchup bottle, the first McDonald's franchise, and the original ice cream sundae. We taught America how to debate. We beat a curse to win a World Series. Superman lived in Metropolis, Illinois, and we brought Oprah Winfrey into the nation's kissing the is immortalized as the name of new technology companies. We don't need to be afraid of our history here in Illinois. Overcome our biggest challenges. We work to mend broken places. We like the journey from hill to hilltop and thrive in the struggle to rise. And ladies and gentlemen, rise we will. We make no small plans for Illinois. We will strive for the highest graduation rate in the nation. We can become the biggest hub of entrepreneurship between the coasts. We will grow the diversity of our economy by growing jobs across Illinois, especially for communities that have been left out and left behind, because none of us succeeds unless we fight for all of us to succeed. We will bring fairness to our tax system and tackle the fiscal challenges of our state, and we will become the leading protector of workers' rights and civil rights and human rights in the nation. When our founders put pen to parchment and wrote into the Declaration of Independence the great promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, they didn't see among them those that they had left out. And so each generation of Americans that has come after has a debt to pay to the promises made at the altar of our founding. In the battle to ensure true equality, we are allowed to know fear, but we are not allowed to live by it. We must realize that the United States is not one nostalgic narrative, that our story is both about the neo-Nazis trying to march in Skokie and about the Holocaust memorial built there 3 decades later. This moment demands that Americans rededicate ourselves to not just the rights and privileges of citizenship, but to the responsibilities of it. And it demands that we reject red hat slogans and Twitter tirades. I lost both of my parents before I turned 18 years old. Their hearts failed them in very different ways. And my story could have turned down so many paths. But the path led me here to this night. It led me to my amazing wife, MK, who I proposed to at the Shedd Aquarium. It led me to my children born at Evanston Hospital. It led me to start my business in Chicago, and it led me to lose a campaign to Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky and win one against Governor Bruce Rauner. My path led me to Grand Crossing 19 months ago. Because here's what I know that the community there knows too. Your history, no matter how difficult or painful, shapes your future, sometimes in wonderful ways. Sometimes the happiest moments of your life wouldn't have been possible without the hardest moments of your life. And the best way to assuage the ache in your heart at that bittersweet reality is to live every day better for it. Illinois has always done that. Illinois has always done that. And we pledge ourselves tonight to fulfilling that destiny. Throughout this campaign, I've ended every speech with one question, and I want to ask it to you now. Are you ready for the fight? The fight for health care for everyone. For well-paid teachers and a quality education for our kids. For equal pay for equal work. The fight for a criminal justice system that is truly just. For environmental policies that are based on science. For a responsible state budget. For gun safety laws that protect our families. For jobs, for a living wage, for strong labor unions. For a state that welcomes immigrants. And for the truth. Are you ready to fight for Illinois? In 27 days, Illinois will celebrate our state's 200th anniversary. Join me in beginning our third century in Illinois with hope and optimism and living every day better for the 200 years we lived before it. Thank you all. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
And there you have it. You've been listening to the victory speech tonight from Democrat J.B. Pritzker, the next governor of the state of Illinois. His substantial win tonight as the yellow and blue balloons there are dropping down at the Marriott on Chicago's south side. His win over Governor Bruce Rauner by an 18% margin this evening. We could see that victory happening early on tonight, even around 8 o'clock, less than an hour after the polls had closed. Governor Bruce Rauner was conceding. And it looks actually, as we see even the projected winners here tonight, the Democrats have a sweep here of the statewide offices in the state of Illinois. And now I want to turn to another race here out in the suburban area. This is the northwest suburbs, west suburbs, down through Naperville and extending over to Hinsdale. And again, a substantial win for the Democrats here, Cheryl.
Well, the AP is reporting tonight after 63% of the precincts reporting that Sean Casten has now won the 6th district over Peter Roskam, a longtime Republican holding that seat. This is considered an upset tonight. We'll have more on this race and all the races tonight later on. We'll see you back here at 10 o'clock.
See you at 10 o'clock.
Racism that have played out in the governor's race there with the comments like monkey that's up by DeSantis and Gillum saying, I'm not calling him a racist. The racists believe he's a racist. And of course, one of President Trump's more controversial tweets in this election cycle when he waited and called Gillum a thief without any evidence.
Gillum laughed off those attacks with a smile. He is a new face for the Democratic Party. It doesn't appear yet, at least, that he brought in enough new voters.
George, that's exactly right. And I think for me, progressives in places like Florida and Georgia, they'll be incredibly disappointed, and they'll be giving their white neighbors the hairy eyeball tomorrow, right? Because there's this narrative in places like Georgia and Florida where he thought there's this picture painted of President Trump, fair or unfair, that for many people he's seen as someone who's anti-minority, right? And so there were people who felt that in the case of Florida, we have a black man running for governor. He's the mayor of the capital city of the state, progressive, liked by many people, that there might be a new South, a new Florida. This is an indication that
Gillum did not run as a centrist candidate. When Barack Obama ran for president, there's no red, blue America. There's only one America. Gillum ran as a fairly radical left of center progressive in a state that didn't like him. Didn't like that kind of politics. He tried to overcome it with personal charm and charisma, but a lot of voters, I think, said, look, you might have told pollsters, we don't want to look racist, but this guy may be just too left of center for us.
Take a look at Florida, Texas, and Indiana. All look like they're headed to be all Republican again. We always talk about Miami or Indianapolis or Austin or Dallas or Houston or El Paso. These are states with a large amount of small town and rural voters still, a huge amount. And it looks like from the returns, they voted overwhelmingly. And this has been a trend. And as the suburban areas are moving, and we see from the House races, more Democratic, the rural and small town areas of these states are moving increasingly more Republican.
Very different directions, Coach Roberts.
Yes, but you also see in this Florida Senate race that the Hispanic vote is much less for the Democrat than it is in the nation as a whole. And so those trips to Puerto Rico probably made a big difference. The fact that the Hispanic voters were not vilified in any way, or in fact courted, made a difference. But we are seeing very different states in different ways. The bottom line is that in these polls, even though the number of liberals was up to about 27%, that's only 27%.
Let's go to Whit Johnson in Tallahassee.
Many of these coming in, and George, I just wanted to pick up on what Cookie Roberts was saying about the Hispanic vote here. It is now 16.4% of the voting demographic here in the state of Florida and growing. But as Cookie mentioned, that is a demographic that is changing within the demographic, and in large part due to the tens of thousands of Puerto Ricans who have relocated here after Hurricane Maria. The estimates ranging from 50 to 75,000. It still remains to be seen how they would ultimately vote and if they would come out and vote. Of course, U.S. citizens that are able to register and vote here in the state of Florida. But I also wanted to mention this. We're getting some information from our decision desk. We talked about how the vote across the state for both the Senate and the governor too close to call. And at this point, it's looking like if that margin stays within 1%, then we couldn't make a projection on that. Also, remember, if the margin is a half a percentage point or less, there would be an automatic recount. Not sure if that's in fact going to be the case. But if there was any concern about the early returns, you certainly wouldn't notice it here at the Gillum headquarters here at Florida A&M University. It's still a party-like atmosphere. And this is the exact crowd that Democrats were hoping to get out. A largely African-American voting bloc, also youth, the college vote. They have been mostly dormant in elections in the past, in the major elections here. They were hoping, the Democrats, that they would turn out to vote. But I can't tell you enough how much Rick Scott and all those visits to Puerto Rico, speaking in English and Spanish, how much that could have an impact on the new growing Hispanic population.
Okay, Whit Johnson, thanks very much. Before we go to break, let's check in on a couple of other Senate races that we're not ready to check yet. That's the state of Arizona right there, where Kristen Sinema up against Martha McSally. They're in the state of Arizona. It's a close one, Megan McCain.
And again, this is the one that I am looking forward to the most, to hearing what's going to happen. I don't think you can underestimate some of the clips that have come out of Kristen Sinema in the past few weeks of her saying disparaging remarks about Arizona. She referred to Arizona as being the meth lab of democracy and Arizona in sort of a negative way. And it was the type of thing that my brother called me about and a lot of my friends called me about. And I think the reminder that at one point in time, Kristen Sinema was a code pink protester that sort of moderated towards the middle, ended up hurting her. She's a great campaigner. I would say a better campaigner than Martha McSally. But if Martha McSally wins, I echo what we said earlier, that it is because of Doug Ducey.
Not ready to call that one yet. We are ready to project a seat, House seat in the state of Illinois, where Sean Cass, the Democrat, has defeated Congressman Peter Roskam, going for his 7th term there in the state of Illinois. This one had the Democrats have had their sight on this one for a long time. John Paul, again, one of those in the range of They had to win to get to their 23.
Yes, and also another one of those moderate Republicans gone. Another sign, we've seen many of them already tonight, that moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats are leaving Congress.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Does Santa Claus himself need the most trusted battery this holiday season? Maybe not. Maybe he could trust any batteries will do. Maybe he could trust his teenager won't react like a teenager. Maybe he could trust Mrs. Claus won't blame him for this. Or he could just trust her herself.
Homecoming is a safe space for you to reflect on your service and think about what comes next. I can't wait to hear your stories and talk to you about where you see yourself in the years to come. Does anyone have any questions I can answer?
Hey, I'm Sue, and my first call is Crunch.
Delicious 100% real chocolate in one single lightness of crispy rice. Crunch, the chocolate bar all year round. Opportunity is everywhere. Like here. And here. See? Opportunity. Everywhere. About to be parents. Meeting the next. In a struggle. Logging out to watch his kid. Opportunity is everywhere. All you have to do to find it is get out here.
Ways to lose stubborn belly fat. The roasted core wrap. Not cool. Freezing away fat cells with Cool Sculpting. Now that's cool. Cool Sculpting safely freezes and removes fat cells with little or no downtime and no surgery. Results and patient experience may vary. Some common side effects include temporary numbness, discomfort, and swelling. Ask your doctor if Cool Sculpting is right for you and visit coolsculpting.com today for your chance to win a free treatment.
Computer, order pizza.
Of course, Daniel.
Fridge, weather.
Clear skies at 75.
Trash can, turn on the TV.
My pleasure.
Ice dispenser, find me a dog safe.
Okay.
And make ice.
Pizza's delivered.
What's happening to my son?
I think that's just what people are like now. I mean, with Progressive, you can quote your insurance on just about any device, even on social media. We'll be fine.
Really?
I don't know.
I've made many discoveries in my life, but you don't have to be an Einstein to know it's more important than ever to keep dreaming.
Keep your dreams alive. Start with a good night's sleep. Unisom sleep tabs help you fall asleep 33% faster.
Know what goes great with steak and shrimp? More shrimp. And you know what goes great with that shrimp? You guessed it, more shrimp. Steak and unlimited shrimp starting at $15.99. Only at Outback.
Back here, ABC News election headquarters here in New York. That's a look at what's happening in the House tonight in these midterm elections. So far, a lot of votes yet to come in. Democrats have picked up 14 seats. They need 23 to take control. Different story in the Senate tonight. Republicans have added to their majority so far, picking up 2 seats, the seats in Indiana and North Dakota. Also want to take a look at another red state right now where a Democrat is fighting for a life permanent castle in the state of Missouri. We're not ready to project that yet, but what you see there, Josh Hawley is now leading over Claire McCaskill as she was seeking to hold on to her seat in a very, very tough state for Democrats. John Karsh has come from behind before. This one's tough.
This one's really tough. This is a state that President Trump, then Donald Trump, won by 19 points. He's been there 5 times. He was there yesterday. He's campaigned hard. and she has a much stronger opponent. She had a deeply flawed opponent. You remember 6 years ago, much stronger opponent.
Yeah, we're going to come back to Missouri, but we have a call in the state of Ohio, governor's race in the state of Ohio. Right now, we're the Republican. Mike DeWine has defeated Richard Cordray, a veteran of the Obama administration, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Mike DeWine, Attorney General of the state of Ohio, has won. He's replacing Governor John Kasich, who's term-limited, a critic of President Trump. Mike DeWine, an ally of President Trump. Big win there, Chris Christie, for the Republicans.
It's a huge win tonight, George. That race was really in doubt. I know folks in the Republican Governors Association were really concerned up to this weekend about which way that was going to go. And as we talk about 2020, having Mike DeWine as the governor is a much better option for Donald Trump than Richard Cordray. And so Mike DeWine, big win for him and a big win for the president.
And Ohio, Matthew, that always such a key in presidential elections.
Yeah, for years and years it was, but as we saw in this last election, a very close election, Donald Trump won it by 10 points. So it's beginning to move away from the swing status. And as we see in a year where Democrats did very well nationally, they weren't able to pick up the governor's race in Ohio.
Yet, on Fox, one of the things we saw is that in the Senate and the House, in the governor's race in the state of Ohio, going very, very
a lot of split ticket voters.
Yeah, and I also think that we're seeing sort of a sequel to 2016 in some ways here, where you have the Democrats kind of running up their vote totals in the urban areas and in cities, and then, you know, the Republicans just doing the same in rural areas. We're seeing this divide between urban and rural America, this demographic problem. But also, I feel like I need to point out, a majority of Americans live in these places that are blue. And we're seeing kind of a restless blue majority and a very vocal red minority that happens to have a megaphone present in the White House.
And it looks like we're heading to a split right now.
Matter, George. Candidates matter. And, you know, the candidate against Senator Sherrod Brown, not nearly as good a candidate as Mike DeWine. Candidates still matter in these races above demographics and everything else. Not a good candidate, you're not going to win.
Claire McCaskill in Missouri, I want to get back to that right now, has been a good candidate, but this one may be too tough for her. We're going to go back to Deborah Roberts in Missouri right now. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? Well, we're not hearing Deborah Roberts, which is too bad. Right there. Tom, why don't you go up to the board and show where the vote's coming in right now?
Yeah, we were talking about those two Americas that divide. Look at Missouri. This is what Claire McCaskill's up against right here. Look at all this red, George. It's going to be very, very hard. One of the reasons why we haven't called this race just yet is because a lot of the vote in both St. Louis County and the city of St. Louis right next door has not come in. Claire McCaskill, she's Senator McCaskill is doing very well there. But if we go just further south to the suburbs of St. Louis, Jefferson, this is a county that went for Obama and then flipped to Trump. Holly's up there. We go to the exurbs of St. Louis, same thing, a county that went for Obama, then flipped to Trump. Washington County, Holly's back up there. It's going to be very tough for Claire McCaskill. When you look at the sea of red in a state like Missouri, it's an uphill battle.
Race gets at the issue that Republicans were trying to walk this fine line here. Claire McCaskill trying desperately to keep this race focused on that issue. That she knows that healthcare is the top issue for voters in America, especially in that state. But her opponent, Josh Hawley, trying to walk this fine line, on one hand saying that he wants to repeal Obamacare. As the state attorney general, he signed on to this lawsuit that would gut protections for pre-existing conditions. But at the same time, he said he wants to keep those protections separate and apart from Obamacare. It gets at this bigger issue that we've seen playing out in races across the country and really raises some concerns for Republicans. How are they going to walk that fine line? What are they going to do? Because ultimately, they don't actually have a plan.
Well, that's going to get to the question for Congress coming back. You know, that lawsuit is going to proceed. If it strikes down Obamacare, Congress is going to have one big issue on their plate.
Absolutely, and the Republicans absolutely own that. And this is, I want to come back to this theme of the moderates, especially in the Senate. McCaskill, you know, a moderate to left. Heidi Heitkamp, moderate to conservative. Joe Donnelly, moderate to conservative. All, you know, we'll see what happens with McCaskill, but could all not be coming back.
Yeah, every one of those candidates, David, also tried to hug President Trump in some ways, even though they were opposing him on other issues. You can't be halfway on that issue.
Claire McCaskill even said, I sided with Donald Trump on 48% of the things he's offered his opinion on. I mean, this is the kind of language that she was using in the end. In the very end of this race, she literally at town halls was asking people to stand up if they have a pre-existing condition or if they have a loved one with a pre-existing condition, to drive home the point that her opponent was one of these who signed on to this lawsuit against Obamacare. But Josh Hawley did something very smart of his own with his ad about his 5-year-old son, who they said they learned not long ago had a pre-existing condition and that he would fight to save him. But look at some of the exits coming in from Missouri. This is what Claire McCaskill's really up against. President Trump's job performance, half of the state very happy with what they're seeing so far. When you look at the issues in Missouri, healthcare is issue number one. I'm going to break it down for you. Pre-existing conditions. Look at this. They even believe in that state that the Democratic Party would do a better job with pre-existing conditions, but this is a state where Trump won by 18 points. That's what Claire McCaskill's up against. And one last thing I want to show you. When it comes to the Brett Kavanaugh vote, she voted against Brett Kavanaugh. 40% said it was an important factor. But again, George, this is a red state where a Democratic senator is trying to hold on, paying a price for the Kavanaugh vote, because when you broaden out, look at the national perspective, only 43% of voters who turn out today support Brett Kavanaugh. 48% opposed. It's really in these red states.
And immigration also became an issue for her towards the end because she ended up hugging Donald Trump on that, essentially endorsing his policies on the border, saying, I don't want, and he basically ended up saying, oh, I hear the chime.
You're hearing it because we have a call in the state of New York where the Democrat Anthony Brindisi, New York 22, has defeated the Republican Claudia Tenney. She was seeking a second term. Another important pickup for the Democrats, John Carl, in the state of New York.
Yeah, and this is in deep red territory, even though it's New York. This is a district that Donald Trump won by 15 points, George. This is like Staten Island, another sign that that the Democrats are winning in a district that Donald Trump dominated. What the Democrats did to the theme of candidates matter is they nominated a moderate. Anthony Brindisi is somebody who had an A rating from the NRA. Now, as this got tight, they switched them to an F in the end. But this was somebody who was very much a blue dog Democrat.
And we have another switch coming in from the state of Florida, the House of Florida. Debbie Mukasa-Powell in Florida 26 has defeated Congressman Carlos Curbelo, who was seeking a third term there in Florida. This was a pure toss-up, Cecilia Vega.
Yeah, it certainly was. And Carrillo, of course, weighed in on President Trump after he threatened to end the policy on birthright citizenship. So this has been an interesting race to watch. And we are now seeing Democrats sweep every single district that went for Clinton.
Gotta stop now. We're going to pause so the rest of the nation can join us.
This is an ABC News election update. Now reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
And ABC News can now project the Democrats will win enough seats to gain control of the House. Democrats will pick up at least 23 seats in the House. We have included in our calculations several seats with later closing times, which we believe will not affect the outcome, but we are prepared to project right now that Democrats will take control of the House of Representatives. So we're heading for a split decision. We have a split decision this evening in the 2018 midterm elections. Republicans will keep the Senate. John Carl, Democrats will take the House.
Yeah, this is a whole new ball game. I mean, even though this is a split decision, it is not the kind of blue wave. The Democrats will now control every committee in the House of Representatives. So those committee chairs that were defending the president, that were going after his allies, will suddenly be investigating him and be investigating his administration, possibly even his business dealings. But because this is a split decision, I think there's a real danger of Democrats overplaying their hand. Because we have seen Republicans do very well in the Senate races. They will have a bigger majority in all likelihood in the Senate and do better than expected in the governor's races. The country was divided in this election, and the Congress will be divided.
You cover the House every day. The Democrats will take the chairmanship of important committees, Oversight Committee, Intelligence Committee, perhaps the most important of all, the Judiciary Committee.
They are going to investigate everything, essentially. They are not afraid to go and check this administration. Many Democrats that I've talked with feel that this administration has been allowed to operate unchecked by the current chairmen, the current Republican chairmen. That will now come to a screeching halt. They are going to investigate everything from the president's tax returns to possible Russia collusion, to conflicts of interest. They're going to look at what the president has done with his agenda so far. There is a real political danger, though, for Democrats in doing this. They are going to have to show that they can legislate and not just investigate. And Democrats I've talked with are well aware of that. They are likely to pass some legislation early on, especially something maybe dealing with corruption in government. They know that they need to send a message that there's a new sheriff in town.
Okay, Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Democrats have taken control of the House of Representatives. ABC News can project. They've also projected that the Republicans will keep control of the Senate during the 2018 midterm elections, a split decision. We'll be right back.
This Sunday night, we're counting down to the biggest night in country music.
We're getting the party started early.
Woo!
I'm really excited.
With the biggest stars. Oh, wow. And the biggest moments with Robin Roberts and Luke, Jerry, Brett, Lee Antebellum, Sugarland, Darius, Keith, and so many more. So how could you miss a night like this? Good question. It's a party no one in. Country music's biggest stars in the spotlight with Robin Roberts. Sunday night at 10 on Central on ABC.
Tomorrow, when you see these deals and steals on my favorite things, you're going to want to say, thank you, good morning.
Yes, it's Oprah's favorite things, and
Yep, you're going to love this.
tomorrow only.
On GMA, of course.
Here's a political story I think everyone can enjoy.
Channel is bringing you up-to-the-minute coverage of the 2018 election and excluding crowd graphics. So many grabs to keep track of the grabs.
Good choice, America.
Which make you alive after the midterms. Night of a million grabs tonight.
Live from Chicago's #1 news, ABC 7 Eyewitness News at 10 starts right now.
Join me in beginning our third century in Illinois with hope and optimism and living every day better for the 200 years we lived before it.
And that is Illinois' next governor, thanking his supporters tonight. Democrat J.B. Pritzker defeating Republican Governor Bruce Rauner. A Democratic sweep of the statewide offices tonight.
Oh, Pritzker's victory comes on election day that saw huge voter turnout at the polls, both here and across the United States. Turnout in Chicago hitting more than 55%, the highest for a midterm election in more than 3 decades. And of course, it was the younger voters that showed up in full force.
We saw that early in the city of Cook County for sure. We have live team coverage for you tonight. All the top races across Illinois. Plus, we have the hot national races too. And our political experts are also here as well. They'll be analyzing the results.
But first, everybody, back to that most significant statewide showdown for Illinois governor. Take a look at the results for tonight. Billionaire businessman J.B. Pritzker getting a large percentage, 55% of the vote to the incumbent governor Bruce Rauner with 39% after 86% of the precincts reporting tonight. The battle of the billionaires, and J.B. Pritzker won on top after spending more than $170 million of his own money.
This race sure wrapped up earlier this evening. And ABC 7 political reporter Craig Wall is live with Pritzker's campaign near the South. Craig, these celebrations, as I mentioned, got off to an early start.
Yeah, it sure did. The race was called so very early in the evening, and the celebration here continues. The crowd's thinning out a little bit, but the festive atmosphere continues. I must say there was open bar tonight, but it was the victory tonight that really is giving people the reason for celebration. J.B. Pritzker spoke for about 16 minutes tonight. He thanked Bruce Rauner for his service to the country and wished him well. And he spoke on positive themes about the importance of voting as an act of optimism. And the balloons and the confetti descended on the crowd, estimated by the Pritzker campaign about 2,000 people. Pritzker talked about beacons of light and how they brought victory tonight, saying, after all, we are the land of Abraham Lincoln and Barack Obama. Pritzker touched on rallying cries from Illinois from the Cubs to the Bears, and he hinted at some of the goals he'll have, the highest graduation rate in America, and making Chicago the technology hub between the coast. He then returned to a campaign question. He ended all his speeches with asking supporters a key question.
Are you ready for the fight? The fight for health care for everyone. For well-paid teachers and a quality education for our kids. For equal pay for equal work. The fight for a criminal justice system that is truly just. For environmental policies that are based on science. For a responsible state budget. For gun safety laws that protect our families. For jobs, for a living wage, for strong labor unions. For a state that welcomes immigrants. truth.
Obviously, there, JB taking a few shots at Bruce Rauner as well as Donald Trump. Trump, of course, became a part of this campaign. We heard frequent attacks about Donald Trump as they tried to tie Bruce Rauner to him. The Pritzker campaign throughout was Bruce Rauner failed, and they talked about so many different issues during this campaign. None of the issues that were attacks of how J.B. Pritzker seemed to have stuck. You might call him the Teflon candidate. Tonight, he is the governor-elect and will be Illinois' next governor. Back to you guys in the studio.
Craig, thanks so much for that. We talked about so much money being spent. Governor Rauner spending $71 million of his own money in an attempt to win a second term. It fell short as he conceded very early to Pritzker early in the night, about 45 minutes after the polls closed.
The polls had just closed,
Yeah.
and within the hour he was giving his concession speech. Eyewitness News reporter Rob Elvis was there as Rauner addressed the crowd at the Drake Hotel downtown. Rob.
It was 7:54 tonight, Alan and Cheryl. Godspeed. I hope and pray you serve Illinois well. That's what Governor Bruce Rauner says he told J.B. Pritzker in that phone call tonight. This was a ballroom full of Rauner supporters, but as you can see, they all cleared out about an hour ago. The governor not mincing words when he took the stage tonight. Here are his first words.
This election is over, but that does not mean the end of the change for the state of Illinois that we need. This is a time for us to come together. This is a time for us to unite. This is a time for us to put aside partisan politics, to move forward together as the citizens of Illinois to create a better future for our children and our grandchildren.
We tried, but the governor did not answer questions from the media tonight. He spent about 15 minutes on the ballroom floor, and then he left. I'm at the Drake Hotel. Rob Elgis, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Rob, time to let that sink in, that's for sure. Now, we got a number of congressional races here, and two in particular in the suburbs that are especially significant tonight. First of all, the battle for Illinois' 6th congressional district. One of the nation's most talked about races. It's received national attention because the outcome here could affect the balance of power in the U.S. House.
And of course, within the last half hour, the AP has called this race for Democrat Sean Casten. Now, let's take a look at these numbers right at this hour. The AP, of course, reporting 88% of the precincts reporting at this hour. 53% going to Sean Casten, the scientist and energy entrepreneur, beating by 47% to Peter Roskam. This is a huge win for Casten because Peter Roskam has held this seat for many years, and it changes the power.
Casten's never held office before, of course. He's an entrepreneur, a clean energy entrepreneur. You see that district there stretching the whole way from Lake Zurich up on the north, going out near St. Charles and down through Wheaton, and even as far east as Hinsdale. ABC 7's John Garcia live in Warrenville now. With Casten's campaign, they are celebrating a big win tonight, John.
That's right, Alan. Your timing is absolutely perfect as well because they just introduced Sean Casten. He is walking through the crowd, making his way to the stage right now. This mood has been absolutely celebratory ever since about a half an hour ago when it came out on the screen in front of this crowd that AP and others were starting to call Sean Casten the winner. Many expected this to be a much later evening and a much closer race, but Sean Casten pulled out a little bit wider victory than a lot of people were expecting, especially for a political newcomer such as himself. His campaign says he got a lot of support, not only from the Democratic National Party, but also from a lot of grassroots people in these 5 counties that the 6th district represents. He clearly benefited from the so-called blue wave of dissatisfaction with President Donald Trump as well. Incumbent Peter Roskam has never faced a strong challenge since he was first elected. But I believe Sean Casten is on his way. In fact, he's speaking right now. Let's listen to a couple of his words.
We won, guys. This is awesome. So, Dick Durbin told me that the best 6 words in political speaking are, let me tell you a story. So I'm going to start with a story. George Collins. There's a story about George Collins. African American. He was born in Chicago in 1925 on the north side. So put this in perspective. North side Chicago, African American, 1925. Served his country as an engineer in the Army, World War II. He came home, became a sheriff, He became an alderman. He became a United States congressman. 1972, he was flying back home from Washington to Midway Airport. His plane crashed. And he died at 47 years old. I was a year old when George Collins died. I had never set foot in Chicago when George Collins died. When I'm sworn into Congress in January, when I'm sworn in, I will be 47 years old, the same age George Collins was when he died. I will also be the first Democrat since George Collins to represent the 6th District. One of the nice things about this adventure is I get to experience a lot of wisdom from a lot of wise people, and Dick Durbin's just one. The second piece of advice is from my good friend Bill Foster. Bill told me some time ago, if you're ever lost for words, say thank you. Thank you. This has been. So thank you. No, seriously. No, you guys are too kind. This is thank you. This has been an unbelievably amazing experience, and it would not have happened without the thousands of people who got behind, who canvassed, who made the phone bank, who came out. Some of you, I know, were paid by George Soros to do this. No, but I'm serious. I'm serious. So many people have stepped up in this moment, and this wouldn't have been possible without all of you. So I can't thank you enough. But thanks to Bill and Molly. Bill and Molly here tonight. Thanks to Linda Watkins. Where's Linda? Stephanie Matz. And let's be honest, the dozens of women who are the backbone of the grassroots movement that make it happen. Thank you to the woman, the legend, my sister, Jillian Castro, who is the queen of social media, the queen of canvassing, and may I disclose the mastermind behind Flip the Six. And most importantly, Jillian stands for, in the immortal words of French Snails, she stands for goodness. I'm 12 of you caught that reference. Thanks to Reed McCollum. And all of the folks at the Coalition for a Better Illinois 6 who prepared the soil before anyone thought this grassroots was possible. Thanks to Kim Savage, Chris Hodgkin, and Tinker Harper, who were working this soil long before Reed came along, and thanks to all the staff who worked ridiculous hours to make this happen. All those staff also have spouses and children who have all sacrificed as well, and I know that a lot of you had crummy dinners. I appreciate all that. I know that Kara, Gwen, and Audrey certainly did. I can't wait to take a couple of weeks off just to be a dad again. I love you all so much. Thank you to Bill Hagel. Where are you, Bill? At IBW, Bill made this hall available and was a sounding board and a mentor to me. I met with Bill before I even decided to run and helped out. And thanks to the whole labor community who has made out. Here's a little something.
Congressman-elect Sean Casten in the 6th District, thanking his supporters, especially his family, for the sacrifice they've made during his campaign. This is huge for this district, and it really is a barometer that has been closely watched nationally because it talked about the control of the House, Casten being a longtime career Republican and politician Roscoe, which means he won't be keeping his seat in the 6th District.
Peter Roscoe, remember now, is a 6th-term congressman. We're going the whole way back to Henry Hyde here and talking about where he began his official career in Washington. So it's a long, long time and a quick change here. And so let's go to Sarah Schulke. Sarah is live in Wheaton at Roscoe's campaign. Hey, Sarah, what's the situation?
Well, Alan, Peter Roscoe just came out and gave a very brief concession speech. As you mentioned, this is a big loss for Republicans in this state. This is a seat that's been held by the Republican Party since 1972. Now, Peter Roscoe has held the seat since 2006 when he beat Tammy Duckworth, but he knew this was going to be the fight for his life. When we spoke with him earlier in the day, he was optimistic that he was going to be able to pull it out, but obviously that was not the case. Now, the Democratic Party Roscoe has been the target of the Democratic Party since he voted for the Republican replacement of the Affordable Care Act. He also endured much criticism for refusing to hold big town hall meetings. Roscoe was also the architect of the Republican tax cut, a bill that many Democrats say favors the rich. Now, this 6th district is a changing district. It is becoming a little bit more purple than red, as we have mentioned. There are 5 counties in this district. The biggest voters in this district are from DuPage County. And in 2016, this district voted for Hillary Clinton by 7%. So not a huge surprise that it is becoming a changing district. Now, just a short time ago, Peter Roscoe addressed the crowd.
And I told him this is a great job. He's going to love it. And I also told him I wish him well and that I will do everything I can in transition as he takes on this new responsibility, as he transitions where he takes on his obligation now to represent his constituency.
All right, we're looking now. We're listening to Holtgren's campaign here. He's now speaking.
Me through this. I also want to thank Beth Goncher for her incredible work. Also, want to thank thank you, Beth. Tyler and Kristen, I'm not sure if they're around or not. We're phenomenal. Tyler, I feel like most sad because Tyler worked so phenomenally hard over the last 6 months. He has been there literally night and day, every single day, and Kristen too. And so we put in the efforts. We did everything we possibly could, and I feel good about that. My hope 2 years ago, when getting ready for this election, was to run a race well and to finish well, and I believe we did that. I feel so good about the race that we ran. I would have loved to have won the race. We didn't do that. But again, I am so grateful for each and every one of you, thankful for the wonderful people of the 14th Congressional District. Just believe so strongly in this country and believe our best days are ahead of us. I absolutely believe that and I'm committed to that and pray for that. And I'm going to do everything I can to continue to support that. So thank you all for being here. God bless you. God bless America. And thank you again for all that you've done for us. We can never thank you enough for that. Thanks again for being here tonight.
All right, that's Randy Holton conceding, of course, to Lauren Underwood there in the 14th District. Eyewitness News reporter Karen Jordan is joining us live tonight from St. Charles from Lauren Underwood's campaign headquarters in Kane County. How's it going there, Karen?
Hi, Cheryl. Certainly a very festive mood out here. Several minutes ago, a huge cheer erupted here at the Kane County Fairgrounds among her supporters when they were hearing word that Lauren Underwood did, in fact, she got elected here in the 14th Congressional District. That groundswell of support she experienced for the past several months certainly coming out to her favor. She was out to an early lead as the returns were coming in, although it was a pretty close race all evening until just this evening when it was called that she was, in fact, elected. Earlier this evening, she did arrive here at the Kane County Fairgrounds Her supporters gathered to watch the returns here. This traditionally Republican district went for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Underwood was hoping a blue wave will carry her to victory, which has happened. The 32-year-old Naperville Democrat is a registered nurse and political newcomer who criticized her opponent's 11th hour attack, in which incumbent Randy Holtgren questioned her nursing credentials. If elected, Underwood would be the first woman to represent the 14th district, as well as the first African American. And just earlier this evening, her chief of staff talked about how she connected with voters.
She shows up. She's accessible. She takes questions, hard questions. She answers honestly, authentically. It's not that complicated. The American people and the people of the 14th district want accountable, accessible government.
So we're expecting to hear from Lauren Underwood this evening. Her crowd very much excited about what happened out here. They were hopeful that things would go her way because the last time a Democrat was elected to this district was Bill Foster in 2008. We will, of course, bring the latest when she, in fact, does give her acceptance speech out here at the Kane County Fairgrounds. That's the latest. I'm going to turn it back over to you, the studio.
All right, Karen, thanks so much. History made there in Kane County tonight. The youngest congresswoman to go to Congress, first African American, and first woman in that district. Now let's head into the election for the race for Illinois Attorney General. Was thought to be the tightest statewide race. The woman currently in that role, Lisa Madigan, deciding not to run again after holding that post for 15 years.
Well, despite how close this race looked initially, anyway, coming in, the race ended relatively early tonight. Republican Erica Harold there conceding to Democratic State Senator Kwame Raoul. Kwame with 54% of the vote, Harold with 43% of the vote. That's a substantial difference on this lane. ABC 7 Michelle Gallardo now, live with Raoul's campaign on Chicago's New East Side.
Alan, this is a room that has started to empty just in the last several minutes, but it does not reflect that mood of celebration that we had here earlier as those election results came in. You know, the Attorney General's office is one that has been in Democratic hands for the last 16 years, and it was Lisa Madigan herself who came out to introduce State Senator Kwame Raoul on stage so that he could address his supporters this evening. You know, this is a race which in recent days had shown some signs of tightening with Democrats behind the scenes expressing nervousness. There had been a last-minute $1 million infusion into his campaign, a donation from House Speaker Mike Madigan, even a 30-second spot on the radio recorded by former President Barack Obama himself. But in the end, there was nothing to be nervous about. Raoul himself had been expressing confidence all along as he sought to present this as a campaign not so much against Erica Harold, but against Donald Trump himself.
More importantly, than the competition between Erica Hill and I was this notion that the role that attorneys in general play right now collectively, not only for the citizens of the state of Illinois, but for all Americans. Attorneys in general have stepped up to be that last line of defense. And I'm glad to be amongst them.
State Senator Raoul also very emotional today, talking about his father passing away several years ago, also about his own battle with cancer, and reminding us that it was on this day 14 years ago that he was appointed to replace then State Senator Barack Obama in his seat. So certainly a very important night for him historically, and now again today, a very big task for him as he takes over from Lisa Madigan a couple of months from now. Live at the Fairmont Hotel, I'm Michelle Gallardo, ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Back to you.
And Michelle, thank you. Quite a life story he has, the son of Haitian immigrants. His opponent this evening, Erica Harold, says that she called to congratulate them after this hard-fought race.
And of course, this race was going to make history no matter what. First time for an African American to hold the seat of Attorney General here in the state of Illinois. ABC 7's Liz Navy joining us live tonight from Champaign, where Harold gave her concession speech. earlier tonight. Liz.
Cheryl, it is a much different scene here downstate. As you can see, things are quiet, and it has been that way for quite a while now. Erica Harold was hoping to make history on her own accord tonight. She was hoping to become the first Black female attorney general here in the state of Illinois, but that was just not the case. Very shortly after the polls closed, Erica Harold said it became clear that things were just not going to go her way, so she wanted to concede early. Around 8:30 this evening, Erica Harold came downstairs and addressed an intimate crowd of hometown supporters here in Champaign, saying that she had just called Kwame Raoul to concede and congratulate him on becoming the next Attorney General in Illinois. During her campaign, Harold had positioned herself as someone who was going to go after public corruption in Illinois government, someone she said would be an independent check on the Pritzker-Madigan agenda that she was anticipating coming out of this evening. The former Miss America and Harvard Law grad said she ran a campaign that she was proud of, but that she was also somewhat disappointed in the race as a whole.
I wish the race would have focused more on issues, and I hope that going forward, campaigns will focus on issues because we need good people to run for political office. And if people feel that their family will be negatively impacted or they feel that civility will not be upheld, it might be an impediment to more people entering.
Well, asked what is next for her, Erica Harold said she's going to go back to practicing law, continue fighting for the things that she believes in. And when we asked her whether or not she has a political future, she said she's not ruling anything out, but she also does not have any immediate plans right now. Reporting live in Champaign, Liz Nagy, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, very good. Thanks so much for that, Liz. Now let's go back. Lauren Underwood, AP has just named her the winner tonight. She is approaching the stage to make her acceptance speech. Let's go to their headquarters in Kane County.
We're saying her campaign communications director here.
Anybody see anything on the news interesting?
Well, history
I'm trying to
was
see if he's
made
going to
here.
introduce her, but maybe he's got
Yeah, let's
something a
talk
little bit more
about
to
the
say.
importance
But
of
let's
this. When
the
she was
importance.
nominated in March, it was the first time a woman had been nominated in that district ever, and now first time for an African American in that district, and the youngest to be elected to Congress tonight. So a former RN working for the Obama administration, healthcare very important. Her ads came under attack in the last 24 hours, people talking about her interaction with patients. However, she overcame all of that, and she won tonight with a very sizable lead over a candidate who had held that spot in a Republican territory for so long. This is huge. And what do you think this represents, Laura?
Well, it represents not only the demographic change in that community, but also the issues that are on the table right now. The Me Too movement. Women are coming to the fore. This is a record year nationally for women to be running for office. Healthcare has been front and center. The Democratic Party has made sure that they really took the Republican Party to task around how Obamacare was handled in the attempt to remove Obamacare. So she was able to come in. She was a very attractive candidate. She had a great message. She had a great bio. And she was able to come in and capitalize.
And these were both districts, talking about the 6th and the 4th Peak Network. Democrats saw how well Hillary Clinton did in Illinois going back to 2016 and kind of made this a special target where they thought, hey, if we can get in under that type of situation, let's see what we can do in these congressional races. But I'll turn to Lance Trover. Lance, you're a political strategist. You worked in the past under a number of Republican administrations. But let me ask you, what has happened here over time? There's obviously been a great demographic shift in the western suburbs. Take DuPage County, for instance, where go back to Lee Daniels and Hay Phillip days, where it was just a bastion for the GOP. Not anymore.
I remember when Peter Roskam won in 2006 was a massive Democrat year, and he won and beat Tammy Duckworth.
Right.
That shows you how far we've come in these races. But I think it also speaks to also at the top of the ticket as well. I think the governor was definitely a drag on a lot of these races as well. And that's something to keep in mind as we're looking at all of these things that were, but the demographics are certainly changing out there. There's no question about it.
All right, so let's go back to Kane County in St. Charles, where Lauren Underwood is about to take the stage and make her acceptance speech after making history tonight after winning in the 14th congressional district. The former RN and Obama administration official. Let's listen in tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Look around you. Look at what we built together. Seriously. just talked with Congressman Holgren, and I thanked him. I thanked him for all that he's done for our community. I'm serious, you guys. He's been our representative for 4 terms. I want to thank him for all that he's done for our community. And he offered to be helpful in transition. Thank you, sir. 50 years and 1 day ago, on November 5th, 1968, Shirley Chisholm was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. She was the first Black woman in Congress. When Congresswoman Chisholm ran for president in the 1970s, she proclaimed that she was unbought and unbossed. And I've adopted that declaration as my own unofficial model. I aspire to be a bold representative for this community, someone who is wholly responsive and accountable to her constituents, unbought and unbossed. It's been 50 years and 1 day, and look at how far we've come. Look at what we've done. Tonight, November 6th, 2018, I stand before you as this community's first Congresswoman-elect. If that's not standing on the shoulders of giants, I don't know what is. Together, on this night, we made history. We made history. But tonight is not about me. It's not. It's about you. Tonight is about you. It's about this team. This victory is only possible because each and every one of you, because you stood up and you declared that this community deserves better. And you did the work to make it so. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Each of you has inspired me to pour every ounce of myself into this campaign because I've seen you do the same. But the campaign began with a simple idea, right? We deserve better. But the question was, did I have the courage to do it? And so I had to dig deep and think, could I do this? And I kind of reflected on a Bible verse. Some of you may be familiar. It's Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? Have I not commanded you? And in our campaign launch video, we responded, courage is grounded in choosing to act. And that is exactly what we have done throughout this campaign. And there have been some rough days on the campaign trail. Oh man. And all the while, I've watched you canvass through rain, through snow. I have heard you respond to vitriol with compassion and patience. I've seen you show up day after day. You did that. When I've had tough days, I think of Carrie and Tom Jackson. Are they here? Carrie and Tom Jackson, thank you, who bravely shared the story of their son's cancer diagnosis to advocate for affordable health care. Thank you. I think of Marta Connor. Who sat on our front desk in St. Charles and greeted each and every single visitor to our office with a big smile, all while providing dinner to our staff and welcoming us into your home and supporting us at every step. Thank you, Mark. I think of Gary Keller. Gary! Yeah, Gary! Who gleefully teased our field team to ensure that everybody hit their goal. Thank you. You have lifted us up. You lifted me up. You lifted this campaign up. And this victory is your victory. Thank you. It's your example that I'll follow in Congress. I aim to be the very best Congresswoman this area has ever seen. And honestly, it won't be that difficult. Because I'll be the first Congresswoman this area has ever seen. Now, I would like to thank my family. Many of you have come to know my parents throughout these 16 months. Now, you know, mounting a campaign to unseat incumbent congressman at the age of 30 was not something that I have been planning, and certainly not something that my parents have been preparing for. Let's be real. Can we be real? Okay. But they have always believed in me. Always. And I want to thank you, Mom and Dad, so much for your sacrifices, for your love, and for being with us at every step of the way. Thank you. I also want to thank my sister, Lindsay, who came in and joined us with her crew. Hey, girl. Lindsay's here. Y'all can give her some love later on. Thank you for all that you've done. I want to thank my staff, Team Underwood. Now, I want to be real with you because some of you all have been here throughout the entire campaign, and you know that this team started out as a team of 2. And we have grown to be a team of 25 plus. And I want to thank you all. From the very beginning, seriously, thank you. You all have moved mountains and worked together and mobilized this community in ways that we didn't even imagine was possible. Let's be real. And so thank you. From the very beginning, this campaign has been driven by incredible women. Incredible women. I want to recognize Sarah Feldman. Where's Sarah? Sarah Feldman in the back. I want to recognize Mitty Sate. And I want to recognize Kate Catherall that way. 3 remarkable women who have believed in me since the very earliest days of this campaign. Thank you. I also want to thank Rebecca Cantor and Ashley Clayton. Where are they at? Rebecca and Ashley, thank you so much. They are the awesome fundraising duo that outraised Randy. Am I not supposed to say that? Awesome fundraising duo. Andra Belknap. Where's Andra? Andra, thank you. Our wonderful communications director, AJ Carl. AJ, thank you so much. Our brilliant senior advisor and the one and only Ronnie Cho. I don't know where they are. Thank you, our chief of staff. I know the sacrifices each of you have made to be here. Many of you left your jobs, your families, your homes because you believed in this campaign. You believed in our community and you believed it was worth fighting for. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. Thank you for believing in what we could build together.
Lauren
and thank you for
Underwood making her acceptance speech as the newly elected Congresswoman from the 14th District. What a historical night for the youngest Congresswoman in Congress and the first woman ever to be elected.
She mentioned that she joked about it, the first woman in the district. That's 145 years we're talking about here.
Right.
It's really earth-shattering. I mean, when you look at what's going on there, what happened there tonight in the 14th, Rennie Hultgren won that district by 19 points just 2 years ago.
Well, people were talking about that blue wave, but tonight it seems like the pink wave was also, and it did not go unnoticed when she talked about Shirley Chisholm from 1972, and when she ran for president, the first African-American woman. A very powerful part of her speech. We're going to take a break right now. On the other side of this break, we'll have more election coverage and analysis from across the state. But first, everybody.
More results though for you too. We'll be right back.
$2 million from me. You got 2 weeks to pay me.
Our husbands aren't coming back. We don't have any money. You want us to go on, Jimmy? $1 million apiece. In or out? I'm in.
This is not your world.
Really thinks we can pull this off. Let's go.
You reap what you sow.
Let's hope so.
I'll see you over April 16th.
Welcome to Emirates, Mr. Jones. Just sit back, relax, and let us entertain you. With over 3,500 channels of entertainment, including the latest movies and podcasts from around the world. We even have live sports and news channels. And with free Wi-Fi, will start shortly. Enjoy your flight, Mr. Jones.
World's best in-flight entertainment. Fly Emirates. Fly better.
What's a gig of data? Well, it's a whole day's worth of love songs. Or 300 minutes of baby videos. A gig goes a long way. That's why Xfinity Mobile lets you pay for data 1 gig at a time. And with millions of Wi-Fi hotspots included, you'll pay even less for data. Or if you need a lot, we have unlimited too. Plus, get $200 back when you buy a new smartphone. It's simple, easy, awesome. Click, call, or visit the store today.
It took Barbie 200 years in the making. Join the ABC 7 Eyewitness Morning News team for our bicentennial bell.
We're live celebrating the communities that made Illinois so special. The places, the people, and their rich history.
See where we turn up next.
And we want to make a correction tonight about the Attorney General-elect Kwame Raoul. Earlier in the evening, we incorrectly stated that Raoul would be the first African-American to hold that seat of Attorney General in Illinois. However, that distinction does belong to Roland Burris, who was elected as Illinois Attorney General back in 1991. And of course, we want to apologize and we do regret that error.
I want to move on to the other races this evening we're going to cover for you. First of all, the race for Illinois Controller. This has certainly seen some controversy in the final days of the campaign here.
Of course, incumbent Susana Mendoza winning the race tonight after facing some last-minute calls to drop out over a leaked video announcing a run for mayor. Take a look at the results for Mendoza, earning a large portion of the vote, 60% over her challenger, Darlene, at 37%. And of course, Eyewitness News reporter Eric Long is joining us live from Mendoza's campaign headquarters from the South Loop with the story for us tonight. Eric.
Sherilyn Allen, Susana Mendoza's opponent, Darlene Sanger, called to concede about an hour after the polls closed. Mendoza won a special election for controller 2 years ago, but this time re-elected to a full 4-year term. The question tonight, though, is she going to serve all 4 years or perhaps run for Chicago mayor? The 46-year-old Mendoza has won praise for cutting costs and adding transparency to the state's bill-paying process, but she's also been criticized for being less than transparent about her political future. On Friday, mysteriously leaked video showed Mendoza declaring a run for mayor. The campaign says the video was made in the event she decided to run and no formal decision has been made. Earlier tonight, Mendoza took the stage but said nothing about the mayor's race.
Thank you for re-electing me as your truth-telling fiscal watchdog who was not afraid to stand up to the biggest bully in this state, Bruce Rauner. You all know that I've been fighting out of my weight class every day since getting elected, taking on this guy. But as I've said many times, the only thing better than taking on Bruce Rauner all the time is beating Bruce Rauner every single time.
Mendoza tonight, through a spokesperson, declined a one-on-one interview. If she does decide to run for mayor, she's not going to have a lot of time to savor this election day victory. The deadline for filing paperwork and signatures for the mayor's race is November 26th. That's 20 days from now. We're live in the South Loop. Eric Hong, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Aaron. Thank Thank you for that. Now, for weeks, the ABC 7 I team has been looking into the ramped-up security efforts surrounding these midterm elections.
Well, let's turn to investigative reporter Chuck County. Chuck's live in Chicago's Loop tonight at the Cook County election headquarters. What do you know, Chuck?
Alan, actually, we're looking at the voter turnout. Very impressive today in the city of Chicago, more than 55%. The last time it hit that level, Ronald Reagan was halfway through his presidency 32 years ago. And much of those stats have been repeated in the Chicago suburbs as well, driven on this election day largely by the millennial vote. Here's what's significant. 2014, 696,000 or few others. This time we're going to be over 850,000. The key is lots more people voted than 4 years ago.
In the past elections, the top group to vote were the 55 to 64-year-olds. And for the first time, millennials are beating all groups. And they are the front runners right now.
Was something else at play this year? A level of outrage that you haven't seen? Absolutely. Anyways, I love to tell you it's all because of our good work and getting early voting and all this stuff. But the fact is, no, this is a fairly unique moment. People have been stampeded to the polls for whatever reasons. I mean, you might argue the Trump people have been stampeded to the polls and they may hold the House. But other people have been stampeded, either Republicans or Democrats, because they're very worried about the threat of losing the democracy, that tone in the country. And more good news from here and other election authorities today. No cyber breaches or foreign hackers reported at all. Alan, Cheryl?
Check, that's for sure. And it's interesting what David Orr was talking about, though. Not only that massive turnout in the city at 55%, but just how he sees it as being a unique situation right now with all the dynamics going on in our nation, where you have an electorate that is truly engaged and wanting to make sure that the votes counted.
Enthusiastic.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to have much more election night coverage here on ABC 7.
First, though, we have a few more of the results that are coming in, so check out your screen.
War reporting means taking risks. You have to go to places where you could be killed. So you're prepared to sink your country in a civil war. The human cost is what is important. You've got given talent to make people stop and care. You have to go back. You'll die if we go back.
Being alive.
I want people to have faith in humanity.
It's the safest place to be. Where you know that look when you see it. And jammies rule the day. This Veterans Day at Valley City Furniture, save 20% off select mattresses. Or you can enjoy 48-month special financing. Get the comfort you want on name brands like Serta and Beautyrest at a price that leaves enough left over for the life you want. Only at Valley City Furniture.
With the Powerball jackpot at over $60 million, you can spend your time doing exactly what you want. Read more books or polish your home. Realize that nothing is ever so real. Sit your time, but only to see the sunrise. The jackpot is over $60 million. How would you spend all that time? Play Powerball in-store, on the app, or on IllinoisLottery.com.
Tis the season for sibling rivalry, and these siblings have been very good. Choose your favorite Cadillac SUV during our Season's Best Winter Sales event. Get this low mileage lease on this 2019 Cadillac XT5 from around $399 per month. These offers end soon.
Time and 10 sponsored by Advocate Healthcare, offering convenient care at a Walgreens near you.
All right, of course, weather always an important factor on election night. However, tonight it doesn't appear to be a factor. Turnout was very high on this chilly, windy day, Cheryl.
Yes, we're jumping ahead basically calendars when we're talking about the weather that's going to be moving in. It's going to feel more like winter here over the next couple of days. And we have to talk about some snow. Right now, outside already dropping into the 30s. You can see 35 in Woodstock, O'Hare sitting at 39, Midway at 40 degrees, and winds still rather high. We are clocking wind gusts up to about 30 to 35 miles per hour. Our peak wind gusts today at O'Hare, 46 miles per hour. A windy day, but thankfully really dry through the afternoon and evening. But with this cool air in place, we're going to drop off into the 30s. And with that wind factor, wind chills come into play. So it's actually going to feel like it's in the 20s overnight and into the start of tomorrow morning. So plan accordingly for this chill. And unfortunately, if you don't like the cold weather, look where we're headed over the next couple of days. Well below average temperatures, near 40 Wednesday and Thursday. We're quiet, but only in the 30s for the end of this week. And with temperatures that cold, you can see overnight lows in the 20s. We are tracking some snow showers. So this pattern change, because the jet stream is going to be dipping to the south of us and opening the doors for all of this cold air to move on in and settle in across the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest. This changes our pattern with highs only in the 30s. We talked about that, but also the potential for not only some rain showers, but snow showers. So satellite and radar, we're quiet right now with rain up towards the north and just to the south, off to the north and west. This is where our focus is, and it's this disturbance that's going to continue to evolve. It'll dig on down into the middle of the country, and there you can see where that cold air moves in. That snow with rain to the south. So let's zoom on in. We are expecting the snow to move in late Thursday night. So pausing this Thursday at 11 o'clock. We're still pretty dry. Here comes this disturbance. We can see a little bit of a rain-snow mix, but with the column of air very cool overnight with temperatures dropping off into the 20s. This is primarily going to be all snow. Friday morning, snow showers in the forecast, and then a little bit scattered. It becomes more scattered, less widespread snow Saturday morning and into the afternoon. So there will be a brief period of about 4 to 6 hours of some snow showers in the area, which could lead to our first measurable snow of the season. With that said, there is still a lot to track with this system. But as you can see, snow amounts and models indicating a few tenths of an inch and up to an inch, not out of the question, mainly on grassy surfaces and away from the lakefront. Areas north and west, the better chance to get some accumulating snow. But storm track timing and ground surface temperatures we have to take into consideration with this system, and we're still definitely a few hours or 48 hours away. So we're going to continue to monitor that. Well, here at home tonight, it is all about that chill. Remember, it's going to feel like it's in the 20s into the day tomorrow. Highs of low to mid 40s. That is it, but it will be dry and quiet. We are quiet for Thursday. Then Thursday night into Friday, there's our round of snow. Cold weekend on tap with highs in the 30s and low 40s and staying well below average into next week. Back to you.
Cheryl, we'll let that first snowfall kind of sink in us a little bit. But right now, check out some results of other races tonight. We'll be right back.
Here's a political story I think everyone can enjoy. Jimmy is bringing you up-to-the-minute coverage of the 2018 election, and he's doing it with graphs. So many graphs to keep track of the graphs.
Good choice, America.
Jimmy can go live on June midterms tonight with a million graphs tonight on ABC.
Follow me.
Critics are raving about The Girl in the Spider's Web. It's a gripping, visually impressive thriller. It's undeniably cool. Stars. Claire Foy is a total badass.
Did I ask you advice?
The Girl in the Spider's Web. Rated R.
Hey guys, listen up. You're never too tough to pay attention to your health. Start by making an appointment with your doctor to review health concerns. And to screen for conditions such as heart disease, cancers, and diabetes. Because taking care of yourself today leads to better health tomorrow.
Learn more at healthydrivenchicago.com.
Unlock your share of $200,000. Earn entries today for a chance to win every Saturday. Don't miss the grand finale on November 10th, where someone will win $50,000 cash. Rivers Casino, let's play. Time to get our Carolyn on. Let's do this.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle. It's united on one street land. Once upon a time, one Christmas Eve, we were jigging and singing. You know my scene. I was hanging out all night.
Right now, get $2,250 cash allowance plus $500 bonus cash on the 2018 Chrysler Pacifica.
Sports on ABC7 is brought to you by Chrysler. It's time to up your van game with a Chrysler Pacifica at the Chrysler Black Friday sales event.
There were a good number of Hawks fans that would not have voted for this particular position.
Hardly not. You know, now that Joel Quinn has free time, we're putting him up for mayor.
Okay.
I gotta check and see if he has dual citizenship.
It should have been our graphic.
Absolutely. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, all right, Ryan.
So, John McDonough and Stan Bowman chose election day to oust their iconic incumbent and give his seat to an inexperienced kid candidate they hope can turn things around their way, eventually win back their constituency. Dion has the final results from ejection headquarters.
Nearly 800 victories, 3 Stanley Cups. Joel Quenneville commanded the Blackhawks dressing room for the last decade. Now that's on a 33-year-old first-time head coach trying to quickly earn the respect of a core of Cup champions.
Ultimately, it's about winning, and I have to earn their trust by them believing that I can help them win, that I can help them be better individually, that we as a staff can put together a plan so they can have success. So if I can do that, there's no problem. It doesn't matter how old I am. And so that's my challenge, but I don't really, my age, I don't think affects that.
Joe was a leader to 3 championships and a lot of success in between. So it's definitely tough to kind of realize, kind of rank and he's not here today.
It means the world to me. I mean, 10 years, 3 Stanley Cups. I was 23, 24 when he came here and taught me a lot as a young man, as a young player. Cherish the days and the memories and all the stuff that we did together.
He's going to be an icon in Chicago for the longest time. The great things he's done for this organization, win 3 Stanley Cups, so that'll never be forgotten.
It's no secret the rumors of friction between Stan Bowman and Quenneville, the GM telling us there's no truth to any of it, saying the two may not have always seen eye to eye, but they always shared a mutual respect. And that has not changed despite Quenneville's abrupt dismissal. Covering the Hawks, Dion Miller, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Dee. Briefly, Sox GM Rick Hahn reveals that he signed Rick Renteria to a contract extension a while ago and just never announced it. This week's college football playoff rankings, what you'd expect: Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan, and tonight's basketball openers included the Irish rolling UIC, Indiana crushing Chicago State, and Loyola cruising past UMKC. Ramblers, of course, raising their Final Four banner at Gentile Arena. Everybody gunning for them this year, but this one was over early, forcing the turnover. Blake Custer to Marcus Towns and the foul. He had a strong game with 11. The story of the night, though, freshman Cooper Kafis showed off his 3-point sharpshooting skills. He had 19 in his debut. Loyola wins by 76-45. So college hoops off and running.
Yeah, we like that. We want the Ramblers to go all the way again.
Well, yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mark. Great job. Just ahead, everybody, tonight we are looking back on how the biggest races of the night turned out.
First, though, more results for you.
How do you show up? Do you just bring it? Or do you bring it all? Third row, like a pro. Nearly 3,800 total value on this all-wheel drive 2019 Acadia SLT one-wing financial GM financial.
All right, you guys. Just want to close the evening out with, hey, victory all around. One thing I did not catch, let me do this right quick, was the election. And yeah, that's what we're concerned with the election in Georgia. Ooh. Well, we capture our seat is concerned with the Georgians. Wow. Kemp won by 59-48. He actually won. We'll talk about that better. However, there were so many things to talk about. If she won, what would happen in Georgia? So Kemp is still and will remain governor. You guys, we'll talk about it later on. Bid everybody good night, but we did our job in Illinois. Ain't nobody doing nothing. Like I said, we don't play in Illinois. Have a good one and good night.